And ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Tippett?
Here.
Commissioner Wisman?
Present.
Commissioner Sauer?
Here.
Mayor May?
Here we do have a quorum present. Bear with me. All right. We don't have our folks here for this month's recognition for Cheers for Peers, but the recipients for February were Roger Gay from the Street Department and Matt Burris from the Sewer Department, so we thank them for their continued dedication. First item is citizen comments, and we have a sign-in sheet. Someone?
Rebecca's
Thanks. Okay, we have 2 people signed up. Did anybody else want to sign up that didn't get a chance to? No? All right, first is Katie Doyle. And just so people know, just come up and you have to give your address, just state your name for the record. Even though I have it, clerk likes to hear it so she can hear it on the tape.
Okay,
Just stand up there.
stand up. All right.
It's okay.
Hello, I'm Katie Doyle, and I'm a citizen of Frankfort, Kentucky. I have some handouts for you guys. I'm here to talk about urban chickens. If you don't mind taking one and passing
Sure.
it. And then, the first packet coming around is the proposal that was emailed to you all. And then the second is a little presentation I put together to kind of give you the highlights. With chickens, I know it's a lot of people think, pasture, huge space needed for chickens, and really chicken husbandry's come a long way. And so I wanted to give a few points and talk about the benefits of chickens in an urban environment or a suburban environment, as Frankfort kind of is. So first thing I wanted to go over was myth busting. The first myth to address is that chickens carry diseases. And so that is mostly false. I mean, all animals carry some kind of disease that can be transmitted to humans, whether it's ticks falling off your dog and you get a tick bite and then you have Rocky Mountain spotted fever.
Or coronavirus. From animals.
Or coronavirus,
Not to say chickens,
or bird flu, or any number of things that, comes along to scare us and thinking we're going to die. So, in order to prevent disease, a lot of it comes down to hygiene. And just making sure you wash your hands and wear a mask if you're cleaning out a coop. I mean, I think hygiene is kind of a common sense thing, and that is the number one way, even with dealing with other humans, to prevent the spread of disease. The next myth I wanted to talk about was chickens are noisy. And that is definitely true for roosters. However, the proposed ordinance that I have given you all is not allowing roosters. It's just hens only. And so according to our noisehelp.com, the level of human conversation is 60 to 70 decibels, and that is about the sound of clucking hens out in the yard. And it's just normal level. Not screaming, just normal talking level. Now, of course, roosters do make the most noise, and crowing does get up to about 90 decibels. And they also have, that very timely wake-up call. So the prudent approach is to not allow roosters within city limits. The next myth is chickens stink. According to watershed researcher Brian Hansen, a 40-pound dog deposits 0.75 pounds of waste every day. And according to a poultry expert, Patricia Foreman, 10 adult chickens create less waste than one dog. So that's just giving you all a comparison. Now, both droppings can be smelly, especially if you let them be really concentrated and you don't pick up after your animal, or, it can get gross. But once again, it kind of takes back to the common sense cleanliness and hygiene. The next myth is chickens attract predators or pests or rodents. So the fun fact is rats, mice, cockroaches, raccoons, foxes, and skunks are among the top 10 most common urban animals. And they're already there even without chickens. Now, most of these predators and pests are attracted to chicken feed or chickens that are easy prey items. Like, they're not going to go try and catch like a healthy chicken, right? They're going for the easy kill. But if you protect your animals, just like if you protect your cat from wandering around, it manages a lot of that risk. Now, on the next point, chickens actually are excellent pest control in terms of tick control. And so they can eat fleas, grasshoppers, stink bugs, slugs, sometimes mice, baby rats.
That's time.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
It goes quick, I know.
May I request that she's allowed to finish her presentation?
I do.
I can, well, under our rules, we can actually do that.
And I can go much faster.
It's okay.
Okay, so property values will decrease according to the next myth. There's no documented cases that home property values decrease due to a family flock next door. So it has been an unfounded myth. And then the next one, coops are ugly. On your slide, it's a very subjective topic. You can have really utilitarian ones that are kind of minimalist and cute, as the first picture shows, and then the second picture shows a really cute decorated coop. And so this is a very subjective topic, and it's almost silly. So, to the next one. I'm doing comparable chicken ordinances. Lexington and Louisville, chickens are allowed, and a lot of those lot spaces are much smaller than the parcels of land that are typically within Franklin County. So chickens are allowed. They also allow ducks, geese, turkeys. However, they must be kept on property, and there are fines for letting your animal run at large, like we have with dogs here in Franklin County. And then Lexington does go on to say no unreasonable odor can be produced and things like that, and animals can't disturb your neighbors. And so that leads us to what I'm proposing for the city of Frankfort is to allow hens, possibly non-crowing roosters, because you can decrow a rooster if you really want to. And then we were going to go on to say ducks, geese, turkeys, and guineas and peacocks not allowed, because really I'm just here for the urban chickens. Must be kept on property, fines for violations, odor, no unreasonable odor or annoyance, discomfort to neighbors, noise, no roosters that crow. Numbers, I didn't really address that because it's kind of subjective to each person's setup. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, Mr. James Hale. And again, even though I'll call your name if you don't mind for the record, so city clerk can hear.
Hello, I'm James Hale, and I live at 205 Millsboro Drive. That's up in Ridgeview, off of Shinkle Lane, within the city limits of Frankfort, Kentucky. I'm piggybacking on Katie's presentation that she just did. Katie and I had a conversation last summer, probably about 5 minutes long. Hey, why don't we try to get an ordinance change approved to allow chickens within the city limits of Frankfort? So my first thought was, no one's ever going to go for that. The more research we did, the more we found that it is a legitimate approach. According to Forbes, 9 out of the 10 best, hottest real estate markets in the United States, 9 out of 10 allow chickens within their communities. There's all sorts of benefits in terms of eating ticks. The back to nature movement is profound in Frankfort right now. We see that through the flourishing of the farmers market. There is a real drive to connect to our food sources that we have here in Frankfort. And also with the problems that we've had with our recycling program. Different people will be attracted to different ways of getting back to earth. Some people, it's really recycling. Some people, it's gardening. For some people, chickens is a viable option. The more research that Katie and I did, the more we found that there are a tremendous number of myths, and most of the opposition to chickens within city limits is based on assumptions and conjecture and hearsay. We tried to draft an ordinance that was objective and based on facts, and one that would address the concerns, mainly which is the crowing. So in our ordinance proposal that we sent to you all, we would not allow any crowing chickens within the city limits. There would be fines in place if chickens get off property to protect adjacent property owners and so forth. That's all I've got. I'm wondering from you all what your thoughts are, and would welcome questions or comments or gut feels or next steps that you all would see in this process. I know we sent this ordinance package over to you all in September, which was about 6 months ago, and I'm wondering what happens now.
Typically, if there's support to discuss it, we put on an agenda for future discussion and let the public also hear it. We have discussed, years back, we did have a discussion on this at the time, and there was a lot of information about it, and at the time there was a lot of folks in the community that weren't ready for it at that time, and there was a few that wanted to, and I'll let
May I have a couple of questions? Was that, I don't know what you're talking about years ago, was that a close vote as you recall?
We didn't vote on it.
Okay.
I don't think it ever got voted on. It was
Okay.
just, there wasn't enough support at the time there
Okay.
to bring it to a vote.
Okay. I'd like to ask Katie or Mr. Hale about the nutritional value of chicken eggs that are raised as you specify, those versus those that are manufactured, we'll say.
Well, I'll let Katie chime in on this as well. My perspective on this is you control what you feed your chickens. Most people who have backyard chickens, they provide a healthier food source for them, and therefore you get a healthier egg product out of the ones that you raise yourself. The ones that I've seen have been in very humane, decent settings. It creates a community bond because people who raise chickens generally have more eggs than they can consume. So they go out to neighbors and friends, and it creates a unity within your given street or your subdivision. I'm not saying that that's always true or that that's required, but that is something that I have seen happen.
In your ordinance, do you provide a certain number of square feet per fowl?
No. What we wanted to do was keep things simple from a regulatory perspective. Louisville has a limit on the number of chickens that you can have if your property is under half of an acre. I believe it's 5 hens and 1 rooster. They would allow a rooster on a small piece of property. The concerns that Katie and I had heard was crowing is an issue. So we excluded, in our draft ordinance, we excluded all crowing chickens. Whether occasionally hens will crow, and so we wanted to exclude those as well as any roosters that would crow. They make non-crowing collars similar to a no-bark dog collar. We wanted to focus on what the real issue was. So rather than regulating by gender, we regulated by the problem, which was the crowing.
Yeah. I know I'll disenfranchise Kroger and other large supermarkets in saying this, but I find country eggs taste so much better and look so much better. Sometimes store-bought eggs look like they were made from rubber.
Yeah, you take a store-bought egg that's labeled free range, and you take an egg from a locally grown source and you crack them, and you will have a vibrant golden color yolk versus something that you thought was, that you're used to seeing from a Kroger.
We've got a lot on our plate, but I would like to look at this a little further.
I would.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have another question,
Eric has a
Commissioner?
I just wanted to thank you all for bringing this forward and taking the initiative to draft an ordinance. I remember a conversation of this commissioner's body several years ago, and there was some language crafted that was unnecessarily discriminatory to barnyard animals and thought was extremely vague and just pointless at the time. I think this is great timing. We just adopted local foods initiative, talking about the health of our community and finding ways to combat local food deserts, like downtown with the absence of pick-pack, and this is something we really need to consider. So I will support fully drafting an ordinance to get this going right now. It's good timing.
I appreciate
for
that.
baby
That's
chickens.
great to hear.
All right,
And,
sorry.
Maybe we could ask you all to work with me at least, but anyone else that's willing to work with our city attorney to draft an ordinance for this body to consider right away.
We'd be very enthusiastic to do that.
I as well am in support. I've spoken
Mayor?
to,
Mayor,
we will let him
Commissioner,
speak. Let him speak.
okay,
Please
go
let
ahead.
him speak.
do I have the floor, Mayor?
You do now. I was gonna say, Patricia was talking, I said, so y'all understand, there's a delay. He sees a delay,
Yeah.
so we have to.
I'm
it's
sorry,
gonna happen. It's okay.
I'm sort of a novice at tech. Seems to me that it would be appropriate for us to direct staff to come up with some data or some research as to, the effectiveness of this proposal and formulate some sort of recommendation for us to craft some sort of ordinance. But we really don't have any data.
Where's the camera? Which camera are we looking at?
What kind of data do you want?
What camera are we looking at?
Microphone.
Oh,
What, in the proposal we sent you all back in
Which
September, we did have some statistics, and there were links to.
Did you hear me?
I was gonna ask, which camera, tell me which camera for me to look at so I can see him. He can see me. We're gonna look on that one?
on the line.
He's on the laptop.
Okay, so we're not running another feed?
No, that looks directly to
This
us.
is Major Tom to ground control.
He can see, that's what I always see, just you guys.
Okay, am I on?
I'll just pretend like I was talking just so.
You're on.
Sorry. You're on, go ahead.
It was just my thought to direct staff to provide us with some research or data as to how this proposal has worked in other communities and in relation to communities our size. It would probably be a little bit precipitate of us to form an ordinance before we had some concrete information and data. And if they could formulate a recommendation to us, then it would be more appropriate, I think, for us to vote on something. But I can tell you right now, I'm a complete novice on this and have no foundational information. So I'd like to have some data presented to me.
We can do that. Anyone object? We'll get some information to
No.
look at.
No, I'd like to go ahead and draft a speculative ordinance with whatever data's required, and let's just move forward with it. Baby chicks are on their way. It's the time of year to do it.
They got them at Tractor Supply. They're
Yeah.
so cute.
I'm in support. I'm in support of us. I have spoken with several people in the community in regards to this. I even had one person call me at 11 o'clock at night talking about this. And I was like, really? At 11 o'clock? But hey, I answered and we talked about hens for a while. But I am in support. I would love to see what the community thinks about that and have a hearing also with the community and go ahead and drafting as well. So.
And just so no, we're not gonna rush it. We'll give
Yes.
people a chance to look at it so that there's not people that push back on it without knowing the facts. Because I think that can
Correct.
happen and that can cause
Yes.
problems. If
Absolutely.
people don't have answers, they tend to oppose things. All right, well, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ma'am, so is the direction to go ahead and draft the ordinance or to look at data?
I think look at data,
I think look at data.
Okay.
look at data.
And do we need to have that hearing with that or
We can.
the
yeah, we
public hearing to?
We're not necessarily hearing, but
Like
just we'll have it as a
A
discussion.
discussion, yes. Yeah, public
Yeah,
discussion.
advertise on the agenda.
Well, it's advertising.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to sign up for citizen comments that didn't get a chance? Brent Swager. You
Oh,
got it.
and Jerry.
We had a few
Oh, and Jerry.
I don't know Jerry's last name.
You can come on up.
James.
James. Jerry James.
Good evening.
Good evening.
A few weeks ago, I had to.
Don't forget your name,
Oh,
even though we know it, because we're.
okay.
She likes to
My
hear
name
it.
is Brent Swager.
Thanks.
So a few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to go out to look at the Broadway Bridge. I know you all are going to be hearing a presentation on that a little bit later on the agenda. And it really sort of changed my perspective. I was sort of a skeptic on the project or the possibility of a project going there. And what you'll hear tonight is from somebody that has a lot of experience dealing with truss bridges, with repair of the iron and the steel. And what you'll see is a little bit different approach than what was presented to you last year. And it's one that I think really has some viability. It's going to be broken into different phases. You'll see that. I won't get into the details, and I'll let them talk about that. But for the first phase, to stabilize it and get it where it's not falling apart, literally, it can be done, it appears, at no cost to the city. So then that buys some time to plan and to identify different funding sources, whether it's through grants, through fundraising, donations even, and then planning for whatever city match might be needed for those. So it gets us out of an emergency phase. We don't have to get, besides going through phase one, the remaining phases would then not be rushed. So you'd have an opportunity to plan for your coming up with the funding that would be needed. So I do want to remind you, when City Visions came in and did a master plan for downtown, it was actually pretty surprising to me that one of the top things, if not the top thing, that came out through the public involvement process was that connecting to the river and the bridge were up there at the top of the list. So preserving the bridge is very important. And I will say that one of the options that's thrown out there is that, well, we could tear this one down and then wait for some funding to come up in the future to just rebuild it as a pedestrian bridge. However, the plans that are moving forward with the state are to tear the entire thing down, including the piers. And I don't think that was presented in the estimate that was given to you back in the fall or the summer. So if the piers are taken down, to rebuild them, it's going to be cost prohibitive. I don't think the project will ever take place. So I think that this is going to be an interesting presentation tonight. I think you'll learn a lot. And I hope that you'll give it due consideration here tonight and make a decision to move forward with the project.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Mr. James.
So, Jerry James, I guess stating for the record. So my name is Jerry. I run the Explore Kentucky initiative. It's a social enterprise that promotes outdoor recreation and environmental education around the state. So we do a bunch of projects, events, and stuff like that. Make money, we donate funds to different groups. So I wanted to talk to you all about special events. I just have some thoughts I want to share. And maybe the city's working on this, but I just wanted to say in the public forum. So one of the major things is that Frankfort does not have an online application system for special events. So if you were to navigate to the special events website, it's a several, almost, I think, 20-page plus PDF that you have to download, put into reader, fill it out, so it's not very efficient. And it also says on the document, click this link to fill out an online application, and the link doesn't exist. It just goes back to that PDF. Second thing is the application fee is $150, and which is pretty expensive. I do events on National Park Service property, Forest Service property, U.S. Army Corps, Kentucky State Parks. So I work with pretty much every land management agency across Kentucky. So the city of Louisville, their special events fee is $40. And I'm not saying that, we should not pay an application fee, but I feel like 150 is kind of exorbitant. So that's one thing, is to reconsider that fee. I think that $75 is pretty reasonable. Having more concise instructions would be great. I, the other day, paid some fees, and then I was told to go to the police department to talk to the police about police for my event. When I went to the police department, they had no idea why I was there. Went to the front desk, and they said, you just go to the city community outreach person, and then they will handle the police stuff. And so I said, well, this person sent me here. So anyways, it would just be great to have more concise instructions. And then another thing that I think is important is consideration of a grant fund for special events. So I do know that there exists tourism funds that you can apply for, like a sponsorship from tourism. But this is not to bash like DFI, but I realize that DFI kind of has like a quasi-governmental relationship with the city, and they do events. And I feel, especially with that whole candidate polling thing that came out, I felt that that could be some malfeasance on their part. And so I think that, I just wanted to note that, but I think that they have a unfair advantage with access to funding for programming, and there are entrepreneurs and other organizations that are creating events that bring people to Frankfort and Franklin County. So I think it'd be interesting to see if DFI and the city could create a grant fund of some sorts for special events, and there should be parameters and multiple people that sit on this grant fund and things of that sort. Because I realized like there was money given to DFI for that Frank Fest last year, and I just know there's so many different people that are doing wonderful programs, and it's hard in Frankfort for sponsorships. It's just limited resources here. So those are just some suggestions that I have, and just want to share with y'all.
Okay, thanks. And just to let you know, there's a process right now where all of the event applications is being redone. It used to be very simple, and then some folks made it really complicated because they overthought it, and we're going to try to fix it back to make it much easier for people.
It'd just be helpful because if you do an event that's multiple years in a row, to be able to just kind of go in the system, update your deals for the next year. And I would just urge y'all to look at the City of Louisville system. You make an account on there, and then all you have to do is go and submit your events for the new year every year. So, just thoughts.
Good points. And go ahead.
Question maybe for staff. He mentioned the $150 event fee.
I didn't realize the judge is here.
Where does that money go to?
That's what I was curious about from an accounting perspective, thinking about the time that's taken to review the event. So I was trying to quantify it. I was curious about that as well.
Yeah, I just wondered. Tommy, do you have an answer? Where does that money go?
Can't rightly say it, but the assumption it goes back into the general fund, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Smith.
Jerry, we've obviously spoken at length, and as another person that organizes some events in this town, our process has been difficult. Unfortunately, our last city manager did not listen to public input in the document that was created, even though there was great amounts of discussion, and it has been something we've been asking to look at. We have a proposal tonight for a first reading that I won't support yet. It's still got a few issues here, and I think we need to be more encouraging of events that are well done throughout our community, that bring in people, and as we have it, fees and processes are still a little cumbersome, particularly for those small community events that are so vital to creating life and vibrancy in our town. So I agree with you as well that we 2-3 years ago, I think it was, started a fund that was up to $500 for community development initiatives for neighborhood associations and small beautification projects and that type of thing that I'd like to put more focus on in this coming year, bring back and then broaden to exactly this type of thing, that where neighborhood block parties, that type of thing, could be eligible for some financial assistance through the city to help spur that community development. So I hope we'll have a lot more conversations about it coming still.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks very much. All right, that concludes that. Next, we'd have staff reports.
First, we have Katie Beard.
I just have one thing tonight. I wanted to request to add a discussion item to the regular meeting on March 23rd to discuss the recycling contract.
If there's no objection, we'll add that. Simple, thanks.
Yep, thanks.
You can stay there longer and talk yourself out of it if you want to.
Well, while we've got Katie up there, I've
Okay.
prepped her on this question. I thought you could give us a quick overview of 2A West Main
Sure.
and let us know where we are and what's going to happen.
Yes, we have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor and with the state on Wednesday. And at that point, we'll have a better idea of the schedule. We're also going to send out letters to all of the businesses on West Main, letting them know the schedule and what to expect and what to see, what to expect in terms of traffic routing and things during construction. It has a 120-day time frame, but we don't think it is going to take that long. We think it'll take more in the range of 60 to 90 days. But that's where we are. I'll have more after Wednesday.
Katie, there are 2 loading zones that are going to be involved, is that correct?
That's right. There's one that's already kind of there beside St. Clair, where the mailboxes and drop-off boxes are. And then there will be another one added near Lewis Street, going, I guess, east, coming out of the parking garage. There will be a loading zone there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Katie, one quick question. Will we have the recycling contract? We did not get it before this. The RFP has been put out, I assume, that was suggested to revise.
So last
An
time
update.
the commission approved the current bid with Republic, we approved that contract. And then the direction, as I understood, was to go to West Rock and discuss the possibility of them transporting materials from Frankfort back to West Rock. And we've gotten a lot of that information, but we don't have it all tied down yet. We haven't gotten all of our questions answered, and we don't have a cost for that option. So the contract that was approved is just, we won't award that until a decision is made.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I tried to get you.
Thanks.
Sean Pickens.
Sean Pickens.
Thank you. Got something to hand out to you real quick. So just take one and pass it down the list there. A couple months ago, you had brought up looking at military rates for the golf course and the aquatic center. There you have a proposal in front of you. What's in red type there you'll see is what we're proposing. So basically, this first page is the golf course, which is much more expansive than the aquatic center. The second page is the aquatic center, if you flip over there on the second page. Basically, with the golf course, that top section there is the different options. If you walk in, you can 18-hole greens with a cart or without a cart. There's different prices. Obviously, it goes down the list. So if you can look there, in the red is the proposed prices. The most popular one that everybody purchases a lot is the 18-hole greens with a cart on the weekends and the holidays. and that was $35 normal fee with military rate to be reduced down to 27. And then the rest of them is $2 off the rest of those rates. Okay. The bottom section there is, you'll see it in red, just that one line. Basically, it's $90 off a season pass at the golf course. Just a normal individual every day was $500. Active and retired military would be $410. Then the aquatic center, $1 off all admissions, and then $25 off the season passes of any of the different types of season passes. We just went one flat rate instead of getting confusing with, if you're getting one child, it's this rate. If you're getting 3 children, it's this rate. We just decided to do one flat rate, $25 off a season pass. So take any suggestions you might have. Don't have to vote on it tonight. I just kind of wanted to give it to you all so you could chew on it. And then if it's, if we want to put it on the agenda for this coming voting meeting to vote it in, or if there's any changes, you can let me know, however you want to move forward.
Oh, you have a question? Okay, go ahead, question.
A couple questions, Sean.
Yeah.
How have season pass sales been going? Usually they're picking up right now, right?
Oh, yes.
So
For
it's
the pool?
for golf.
Yeah, they're pretty solid. Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers for you. I can get them, but they're solid. Yeah. The pool is sold out. We don't have one rental date available for the entire summer. 14 days into January, the pool was completely booked. All the available dates. 14 days. We started taking reservations January 1. By January 14th, we were 100% booked. It's like that. So,
Mayor,
Commissioner.
City Manager, are you ready to adopt these?
Yeah, if y'all are fine with it, just let's put it on the agenda for the 23rd.
Let's
If you
do
have
so.
any suggestions, I guess you could make them one by one at that meeting. Let's go on and put it on the schedule.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do so.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and put it on the agenda,
Did
and
you
I
have some?
think those were the rates that we were tentatively discussing anyway, so let's do it.
Did you have something?
Oh, I just had a question on the pool. The dates that were, I guess, solidified that are all booked. Are those fully paid in orders? And if they cancel, how many days in advance? And if do we keep a certain percentage? Because there are people that are on a waiting list.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Yeah,
if
we
people
have waiting
cancel.
lists.
So what does that look like if someone waits so many days before to cancel? So we can get someone in on that day. And are they paid in full now?
yes.
To where they're just not holding.
It's not officially booked until they pay.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody else can come in and book it on top of them if they don't pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner?
Mayor,
Sorry,
a
I couldn't
question.
hear you.
Rick
Couldn't hear you.
Higgins.
You're not
Yes, sir.
What?
Finding that the golf market for us, and I assume this is the case, but I'm pretty sure it's the case nationwide, that the golf market has plateaued, if it's not slightly declined. And I think that the amount of play we receive from daily players is greatly affected by any rate change. And that probably decreases the demand. Do you see any way we can affect some stimulus or some incentive to increase daily rate players?
Yeah, I mean, Kirk is trying to do some different promotional ideas to try to get more people there. I think the rates, they're a little bit lower than a lot of golf courses around the area for the size of course. So, I think we're in line there, and so he's trying to push it. Like you said, golf across the board is declining. So it's a tough market right now, but yeah, we're just trying to promote within. And you had mentioned a couple meetings ago about trying to make more space and more availability for just everyday players that just walk in. And Kirk is working on a plan to do that, working with the local groups that are there now, the women's groups, the senior groups, and basically trying to get them to be more open to letting everyday players play while they're playing. A lot of times they would just, our senior group is playing, we don't want anybody else on the golf course. Well, Kirk is working very closely with those groups to kind of loosen up a little bit, and while they're playing, to allow everyday players to have more options to play. So Thanks for
Sean.
the question. Thank you. Then, one other thing on the parks master plan, the RFQ is drafted. Laura has it. She has been 100% slammed, so she's going to get to it as soon as she can. No, but it's for the most part ready to go. In discussions with Keith, we decided to do an RFQ, request for qualifications. So we're going to send that out. And I know of 4 or 5 personally that I have worked with on various other projects. So I'll be really shocked if we don't get 4 to 6 responses. So we're going to take whatever responses we get, rank them. We're working on a grading scale, and we're going to try to narrow them down to the top 3 candidates that we feel would best perform our master plan. And then of those 3 that we narrow it down in the RFQ, send those 3 directly an RFP, and then get the prices for what they're wanting to do, and then select out of those top 3, and then award the winning bid. So that's where we stand on that. So it should be relatively soon. We'll be ready to release that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tommy Russell.
Tom Russell, Director of Emergency Management, Frankfort, Franklin County. Just in case you haven't heard, there's something called COVID-19 out there. It will have an impact on the city of Frankfort and Franklin County. This update is for preparations that have been made, actually city and county-wide. I've brought the best of the best with me tonight, Miss Judy Mattingly, Miss Brittany Parker, both here. We have created a poster that's going to be disseminated or distributed throughout the city. That's just, Brittany, you got that thing? I want to pass those out up here so everybody can see them, and we'll hold them up in front of the camera so they can see it on TV land. Anyway, I've had meetings, and I'm sure Miss Judy's tired of me being up in her office. It's my second office now, probably. But I have had meetings with, I have staff meeting tomorrow with all department heads to discuss preparations that need to be made in case this thing ramps up. Let me say that. We probably in the state of Kentucky would expect more cases. We have right now 4 cases that are confirmed, no deaths. But the more testing that is done, probably the more people we will find with this disease. So I've met with the fire chief for EMS response. I've talked to the police chief. I've been in contact with the Frankfort Plant Board several times to make sure that essential services and needs are met in the capital city in Franklin County. With the discussion about water, potable water, maintaining a drinkable water supply has been had. They've assured me that they have a plan, and I know they do because I've talked to Darren Rambo several times, and he wrote that plan for them or helped them to write that plan. As you all know, he used to do the job that I'm doing now. For us, we're going both the guidance of the CDC and local health department. Judy and I will be standing side by side when information needs to be disseminated. We're actually going to do a press release tonight or tomorrow through our local media network and go from there. Like I say, I have talked to all the numerous department heads from transit to trash to sanitation to fire to police to get ahead of this and to try to stay ahead of it, and even to our city solicitor about meetings and what we need to do with social distancing. I'll answer any questions that you have right now, but I feel comfortable. I met more than an hour with the mayor yesterday, and I met with the county judge executive for more than an hour this morning. So we are all on the same page.
You have a question? Commissioner
Just,
Sapp?
could you describe, or maybe the chief would describe, are there special precautions that, say, the ambulance service is taking regarding this?
They have written a policy we've been asking questions in 911 for more than a month now. Did you travel outside the United States? Have you been in contact with anybody with COVID-19 that's been diagnosed that way? So for more than a month, we've been asking those questions for anybody called in for flu-like symptoms. We have actually changed our questions just last Friday, Wayne? Chief, and then the announcement of the first case in Kentucky came out, so he jinxed us, there's no doubt about it. And then on yesterday afternoon, Miss Judy was 3 more cases were confirmed in Kentucky. So, but they have a protocol for personal protective gear, what we're going to do, who's going in, how we're going to do the documentation. FRMC has established protocol now. Frankfort Fire's work closely with them. So, and we have even secured a place if we have to isolate or quarantine an individual on staff or that came in contact with that through their work, where we have a place to take care of them. So we're reaching out there pretty far to see, and hopefully this thing will subside as the weather gets better. But social distancing and washing your hands are going to be the best step of action for us.
I didn't know if you or Judy could comment on the supply locally in general to mask the 90, what do they call it, Judy?
N95s. N95. And actually, the N95, any masks are recommended for those that are infected only, not for the general population, not for the layperson. It's a water transmitted infection that you get, so those N95s keep all that inside the mask. All of the masks, and that's why I'm saying that, all the masks that are for the infected and for the first responders. We have a pretty good supply of that. If the supply gets low or the cases ramp up in Franklin County, we'll declare an emergency, which the state of Kentucky is already under the declaration of emergency. Mayor and the judge will sign such an order for Franklin County, and that gets us access to strategic national stockpile, to a whole lot of things. It changes the ball game for us to be able to ask for supplies.
So the question was, are N95s available locally for sale? Do you have to have a prescription or something?
I don't believe there are any left in Franklin County.
I don't think there's any.
They are all under our, we have several.
You've got them locked
The
up.
health department has several.
All right,
I don't
Judy.
believe you can find hand sanitizer, Clorox.
Lowe's has hand sanitizer.
Some of those things.
I've been everywhere.
You bought them all, didn't you?
Don't come to my house.
I can't imagine you could find an N95 mask anywhere in the Franklin County.
Okay. The people ought to know that.
Tommy, I think we should
People ought
tell
to
too,
know
like, if you buy an N95 mask, you have to be fit tested for that mask.
You are
Don't go out
supposed to
and
be
buy
under
it if you
OSHA
don't know
rules,
what you're
regulations.
Is that right?
Don't
That is
you
correct,
do.
sir.
Because if not, you're gonna not be protected properly.
That is correct, sir. Without the proper fitting.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wilson.
Mayor, Tommy, for local protocol, for those that have concerns, best to direct questions to the health department directly.
There is an 800 number. I don't remember it, 800. It's on the thing.
722-5725.
With a website also, and they can call that number, and they are fielding all of those questions. Trying to take the burden off of the counties and the 911 systems, and 911 has that number. Should somebody call that and want to ask those questions, they'll direct them to that.
Could you work, maybe make sure that city's website and county, I'm assuming as well,
Yes,
has
sir.
all that on the front page?
I meant to do that today, but I ran out of time, but I will get that to
I
them.
assumed you were.
So what would be, let's say someone hypothetically here in Franklin County feels that they may have this and they're having those symptoms. Do you drive yourself to the hospital? What is that, and to quarantine, and to know how many people you've been around, and what does that look like? What does that process look like if someone thinks they may have it?
Judy and I had a conversation just 10, 20 minutes ago.
I just want to say thank you to the health department as well as you, Tommy. I called the health department today, and they were very nice and giving me information and making sure they were present. So I appreciate you both.
No, we appreciate you all keeping this in the front burner and making sure our community is aware of it. So if anyone in our community feels that they have, first of all, had that travel history or been around someone that has had that travel history and they're having those symptoms, so mostly the symptoms are going to be fever, cough, and shortness of breath. They do not want to go directly to the doctor's office or the hospital, please. stay home, make that phone call. Yes, make that phone call to your doctor's office or to the hospital, and they will give you very specific instructions if they feel you need to be tested on how to enter the hospital so that they can have that N95 placed on you as soon as you arrive, so that they can get other patients out of the waiting area and not expose them. And our hospital, again, has been wonderful to work with. They are our primary place to do testing here in Frankfort, Franklin County, but please call ahead before you go.
Okay.
And I should reiterate with you asking that the message that we are giving from public health is if COVID-19, you had never heard of it, and you get sick, if you wouldn't normally go to the doctor, don't go. Only go if you are in severe respiratory distress. Anything else?
Great, you do a great job.
Let's just reiterate that phone number for anyone that may be watching on TV that wants to call 1-800-722-5725.
That is it. Correct.
And just if you're not,
Thank you all.
this is all going to be in the news release for sending.
Mhm.
So this has local, state, and the CDC, which is the federal.
Yes,
It
there are.
has a lot of good information.
Yes, and those are the sources we want to use, not just your Google search. Use the CDC, the World Health Organization, the Kentucky Department for Public Health.
And could the State Journal get a copy so we could have a page in the State
They're
Journal?
getting
I'm
They're
sure they
getting
would love some space.
And we have extras that we can make sure
Okay,
that
that'd
you
be
get.
great. Yeah, like, that'd be great. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you all.
Thank you. all.
Thank you.
Next will be Chief Adams.
It is cold in here.
I know, I'm like, well, he's kind of in a long shirt and a jacket. So.
Good evening, Chuck Adams, Frankfort Police Department. Today I'm just going to talk real quick about, and you may have already, if you looked at the agenda, we have 2 dispatchers that are leaving us at the end of this month or in this month, and we're also having a third. Rita Griffin has decided to step down from her position and resign as of the end of April. So basically, it's a 16-person department full-time. That's going to put us at about 11 because we're already too short. We are being aggressive in our hiring, but just want to give you all a heads up on that. We are looking at some things to try and attract people that are already certified dispatchers, maybe some pay changes, and also a little bit of structure change. But I just want to give you a heads up. We are going to be running a little short in our dispatch center. So.
Thank you.
That last one.
That's it.
Chuck, I just wanted to thank you. I know you've been fighting an uphill battle since you've come in just to maintain minimum staffing. I'd like us to further look at expanding that very soon if we possibly can. But
Oh yeah, we
I know
finally
it's
got
coming.
the police department where we want them, or at least where we're allotted, and now we'll fight with the dispatch.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, thank you. Next item would be discussion items. First item is Wanda Joyce Robinson Foundation. We have Miss Amy Snow with us.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Nance Snow. I'm a co-founder and president of the Wanda Joyce Robinson Foundation. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes to speak tonight. Full disclosure, I'm not here to ask for money. I'm simply here to inform you about our foundation, who we are, and what it is that we do. The Wanda Joyce Robinson Foundation was founded September 2018. Our mission is to serve children and youth who are impacted by incarceration. If you're like me, about a year and a half ago, I would have told you that I understood this issue. My background, I've worked 5 years with kids in foster care, juvenile justice, probation officer, and I've worked the past 13 years and currently with Franklin County Public Schools. I would have said I had a good concept of this issue of facing children and youth, but I did not fully understand the scope, really the crisis that is impacting our children. 15% of Kentucky's children have an incarcerated parent. That's 145,000 kids. That's more than double the national average. I can go on and on with statistics. I know we don't have that much time tonight, but for the Kentucky Department of Corrections, 3 out of every 5 state inmates is a parent. Kentucky has the second highest female incarceration rate in the country. We have the highest number of children living outside of their home with extended family members, more than 9,000 children in foster care. The Annie Casey Foundation terms this as a shared sentence, citing the devastating toll of parental incarceration on children, families, and community. In the essence of time, I just real quickly want to go through some nuts and bolts about our foundation. We have a 24-member board. 3 of our members were here tonight. Our board is made up of professionals that work in their day-to-day life, in their career serving children and families. We also have representatives on our board of the population that we serve. To be honest, the synergy on our board is nothing short of amazing. We truly believe that together we can address some of these issues that are really, if you give me on the macro level, are not being served. They unintentionally create other issues. Our board meets the second Saturday of every month at the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. This is an open invite to the public, 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning. We meet the second Saturday. However, in April, it'll be the third Saturday because of Easter. We've purchased a software that allows us to create data, a database of our children and families. By the end of this year, we'll be able to run all kinds of reports. We have a master's level social worker who responds to our referrals. She's a frontline volunteer. She's the person that makes phone calls to families. We have filed our 990 with our CPA. We're very excited about this because we are vigorously going after grants for full-time staff. Why do we need full-time staff? In 2019, we had 285 referrals. Those are Frankfort kids. And that's not even scraping the surface. I mean, this is, we're creating a nonprofit. We don't know what we're doing, and we end up with 285 kids. How do you do that? All right, so here we go. Let's discuss programming. I passed out an annual report. If you flip over 3 pages, we have all kinds of programs. What is it that we do? We support visitation. We know that not every child needs to visit their parent. We have a vetting system for that, a very strong vetting system. But we are able to host contact visitation in the Franklin County Regional Jail. We are able to offer video visitation. We have a volunteer that does that, where families can speak with their parent, kids can speak with their parent weekly for a free video visit. We also support sending children to state and federal facilities. We're able to provide transportation. We have volunteers that are willing to do that. We have a quarterly meeting that we call Family Fellowship. We get all of our families together for food and an activity. We also celebrate kid birthdays during that time. Also, with Franklin County Regional Jail, we have a monthly program. It's called A Familiar Voice. This is through a partnership with Paul Sawyer Public Library. The incarcerated parent is able to choose a brand new book and record themselves reading that book to their child. We have over 18 kids that have received a book. This is something that goes out monthly. We have a caregiver support group that is led by a licensed clinical social worker. This program is run monthly since July. We have a lot of families that plug into that meeting. We have total support volunteers that come and provide childcare and a program and dinner during that time. We have partnered with the King Center for over a full calendar year now, where Dale Robinson and other volunteers go to the King Center twice a month, and they meet with 100% of the kids that are down there during that time. We have a high school outreach, and I will tell you that one of our high schools, we meet with over 100 kids monthly who are directly impacted by incarceration. Along with that high school outreach, we're doing college and career field trips. We have a scholarship, the Adam Hyatt Memorial Scholarship. Last year we did award a student, and that will continue this year. We have a committee on our board that oversees all of that. For prevention, we have partnered with a man named Gio Gibson out of Lexington. I've personally worked with him since June 2018. He provides an intervention for youth who are currently involved in the court system or very highly at risk of being involved. So he's able to meet with students. Right now he meets with a little over 30 kids every single week. We provide extracurricular sponsorships. In 2019, we funded 54 kids to be able to participate in extracurricular activities. I could really talk all night about this, but one of the things that I'm most excited about is the program called CRESH. It stands for Kids Rising Up Through Support and Healing. This is a weekly school-based social emotional curriculum for students who have an incarcerated parent. It was founded by 2 educators in Russell Independent Schools. The foundation has paid for these ladies to come to Frankfort twice. We have them scheduled to come a 3rd time in April. Our goal is that we would have a CRESH program in every single school in Frankfort. Right now we have them in 3. We have 51 students that attend this group weekly, just in those 3 pilot schools. Also present with me is our AmeriCorps Vista, Megan Morrow. She organizes our volunteers, but she's also implementing, building the infrastructure of our mentoring program. There's a nationally based program called Amachi, specifically for children of the incarcerated. And Megan has been working with Amachi of Central Kentucky, which is in Lexington, to learn directly from them how we need to roll out this program. So we're excited to say that we have our first 2 mentors, and that is a program that we will be building in 2020. So, what is our vision? We totally see our foundation embedded in this community. We have an office in the King Center. That's where Megan's office is. We're there twice a month. We, for programming, we have our monthly meeting at the Bluegrass Care Navigator's office. We meet with Paul Sawyer Public Library. Right now we currently have weekly programs in 5 schools. We have numerous partnerships with the cabinet, the jail, the police department, really every organization, nonprofit, the Sunshine Center, just everybody in Frankfort. We also see a bright and positive future for our children and families, one that would break the cycle of generational incarceration. Look at our programs. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited about our foundation, because we have kids who are experiencing layer upon layer of service. We have kids that go to gymnastics weekly. They're going to their CRESH group. Their parents come into the caregiver group. They're getting a book every month from their parents. Like, it's amazing just to see all the spokes of the wheel coming together here. And I really in my position with Franklin County Schools as dropout prevention, I'm excited about this because I really see 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students that they get these services, they're more prepared for middle school. They continue these services 6th, 7th, 8th grade. They're more prepared for high school and just beyond as young adults. So that's something that I definitely get fired up about. My husband's actually waiting for me. It's his birthday dinner tonight. So up this place on Cable 10 or wherever so he can see it. No, he's waiting for me at the restaurant.
What's his name? I forgot.
So here's my close here. How can we serve this community together? How can we serve Frankfort together? Captain Dustin Bowman serves on our board. We've had a discussion of the benefits of a full-time social worker being needed at the Frankfort Police Department. And again, full disclosure, we're having this conversation with the county, having a full-time social worker at the jail. Is there a way that we can discuss this conversation, that further the conversation? What if our foundation was able to write a grant for a full-time social worker position, and then we could be able to discuss that person being able to receive health care benefits, perhaps from the city or the county later. So that's a conversation. I did meet with Kathy Fields last week. We met for quite a while and had an extensive conversation about that. It is possible. So I would just like to know really, what are your thoughts about that? Is that a conversation that we could have?
Amy, thank you. You're awesome. You know, we've talked about that. Some of the cities, other mayors I've talked with about their problem with drug abuse. Some of the cities now are going with social workers in their police departments to help on the intervention and follow-up after people have overdosed on drugs. This is an awesome program, and I want to thank you all for doing that. You have a good heart, I know that. And this is another great thing that you're involved in, and all the other people on that board. I look down through them, know so many of them, and think it's great. How many dollars does it take to run this program? Do you know yet, or is it still fair?
I do. On the last page of our annual report, there is a breakdown of our 2019 finances. So, we could say around $30,000. But the breakdown is there. The 990 is filed with that breakdown as well. But our AmeriCorps Vista, so that's about $8,000 just to fund that. And administrative costs were actually more than what I thought that they would be, but we need that. There's stuff that we have to pay for insurance. We have to pay for professional fees, that kind of thing.
It's nice to have volunteers, but it makes a difference in programs that have full-time people that are paid.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going for.
It makes it happen. And then do you know the rate of, like, the women that are incarcerated in Kentucky? I know it's high, but what types of offenses are they in for? It's not.
Well, I mean, there's no mistake. Opioid and meth crisis is a.
So the devastating effect that has on families is
absolutely
is more than just the addiction.
And when you look at the profile of Kentucky, unfortunately, that's what we rank. I mean, we rank high in all of this in the country.
Well, you're awesome. Anybody have any other questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Sorry you're missing the birth. You'll get there soon, hopefully. But no, I definitely support a full-time social worker / mental health counselor, as I've brought it up several times with Chief, and that for us to have someone actually on time and I'm actually also in the process of looking for grants as well, because it's something I brought up on several occasions here since I've been city commissioner, on trying to get someone for fire, just for the city and for the police to have a counselor or social worker or something that we can have full-time, that the city can be at the use of the city full-time. So that is something I brought up on several occasions, and I've been searching, and I think they have as well. So,
right.
Yeah.
I got a text from your husband on this third margarita.
And you're paying the bill.
All right, thank you all so much.
Like most things, we'll have to check with the chief, check with the HR person, get some feedback from them, and then have an answer for you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Tell your husband happy birthday for us. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Next is, I apologize, I didn't introduce our county judge is here tonight, folks. I should have introduced you on the front end. Sorry, Judge. Farmdale agreement discussion. I believe that's going to be our wastewater treatment director, and this is what you all are here for. Are you going to say anything, or you just wanted to be here?
Yeah, be happy to. Like to. It's okay.
I'm just trying to give you all an update. Y'all should have received an email later this week with the draft. It is still a very early draft. We're still, Laura and I and Keith are still working on several issues with the draft. But we did get word today from the county that a resolution, just a simple resolution saying that we're going to partner with the county, should suffice for the EPA in Atlanta. So that allows us to do that, and we would also like to request that be put on the agenda for March. Laura's working on the resolution right now, and we would have that to you here in the next week or so.
So if there's no objection, we'll do it.
That's fine.
Also, I should mention too that Mr. Alan Alsop was the planning director here and also city manager.
Twice.
Was it twice?
Twice.
At least.
At least.
County planner too.
And Robert Hewitt, our county planner. He
But-
used to work for the city. Thank you for stealing him. And I don't mean thank you for stealing him. I mean like thank you for stealing him.
Well, we wanted to make sure y'all knew, we reached out to the county to see if a resolution would work, because we were scrambling trying to get this in front of you all. This gives us some breathing room to get the final agreement wording right. Now that we can pass the resolution, but while we have the judge and Farmdale here, I'd love to get their opinion or their thoughts on why this is needed and why it helps the county.
You stay up here. You answer the technical questions. Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for having us here. You mentioned Alan Alsop as our chair of the board. Ray Smith is also a board member, and Cindy Arflack is another board member from the Farmdale Sanitation District. And Mayor, if you don't mind, before I get in, we left to tell Mr. Tippett that it was 70 degrees here in Kentucky today. Really nice day. Sorry, Mr. Tippett, you missed such a beautiful day while you're in Florida. But anyway,
2, 1.
they can't hear me. That doesn't matter. Good. That's fine.
Now you listen.
Never mind. We didn't talk about golf. Never mind.
Is that the good judge?
Yes, it is. Thank you, sir. But as
I've
we
not lost any golf balls yet.
then you had to play golf. As a background, I've heard several people come up and talk, and everything that's been said about those that have come up and talked to you about is about community, and today this is a great movement forward for our community. And why is that the case? Because there's two things that are going on in Frankfort and Franklin County that are unique to almost any city in our state and our country. And that is, one, in the middle of our downtown, in the very middle of our downtown, we have roughly 12 acres, 11 point some acres, that are totally being torn down and started over again in the middle of a downtown. That's unique. That is something that doesn't happen almost never in a community. And we have that happening with us in our downtown area. Also unique to Franklin County is that we have a section of our county, the southwest quadrant of our county, that is, as this moves forward, the reason we need this is because if and when this moves forward, this will provide sewers for a whole section of Franklin County. A whole section of Franklin County that are not under sewers right now. Well, let me take that back. They're under a sewer treatment plant. But this will provide a sewer program through the city that will allow growth, that will allow new development that will be unheard of in a county as large as us, that will be new, all new. So, as part of this, as this moves forward, what is the most important thing that myself, Robert Hewitt, and us as we work together should do? We should and we will work with the planning and zoning and make sure that as this growth takes place, with the cooperation and interlocal agreement with you all and us, that this growth is maintained and done properly. That's what is unique. Same thing in the downtown area and same thing in this area. So, Mr. Hewitt and I are going to go to the planning and zoning, because once the sewers come in, as you know, growth doesn't happen unless you have sewers. We have the other parts of the infrastructure, but we don't have sewers. So, when the sewers are in place with this agreement, we can just say, we better watch out, because it could happen too quick unless we do the right planning. And that's what we're going to be doing from the county side to make sure that when this happens, that we will do it correctly. And when I say correctly, so if you drive 127 from US 60 to the interstate, every 100 yards, what do you run into? A stop. That's not proper growth. So when we fix this, when we look at this, we're going to plan accordingly. We're going to have access roads. We're going to do it in the right way that we all can be proud of this growth and say this was done correctly. So here's why it is a great advantage to you. Because you are going to work with us and we're going to work with you to provide the sewers. You're not going to pay a penny. You will not have to pay a thing. We're going to build the sewers. The Farmdale Sanitation District is going to go out after the loans, to get the infrastructure, to get the lines in, to do everything that is possible to get to your point where we're going to hook on to you. So that's why if you're asked, and some of you may have already thought, well, how come this group is not going to pay the cost that all it's built up over the years? Because this is so unique, and it doesn't happen very often in a community. This will allow us to send our sewage to the city of Frankfort, but we're going to do all the infrastructure to get it there. So, Mr. City Manager, I hope that answered your question, and forgive me for going on a little bit longer than probably should have, but I'm willing to take questions, and Alan, Robert, Ray are here too if there are questions.
Questions, commissioners? I think you explained it so well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next item, homeless housing update. Our EM director. Thank you, guys. Good to see you. Sorry.
Because you always speak on that.
Doesn't matter yet.
I'm sure.
Oh, I have some documentation to hand out to you all. I was supposed to have something ready for IT to put up on the screen, but something happened and I got busy. I apologize. It is what it is. I ran out of hours and minutes. I wanted to give you all last year, you all committed funds to an emergency homeless housing unit.
I feel like it's like sneaking.
Is that you or Scott?
No, it's definitely not me.
Oh, Scott.
I never
Anyway.
turn my phone off in meetings.
Sorry.
That's all right. You all committed funds.
How dare him of all people ask.
An emergency housing unit. I just wanted to kind of give you an update, and I want to ask Ms. Janet to present some numbers to you all to help to explain what we've done, where we've gone, how much this has helped. Let me say this for the women's shelter, the men's shelter, Simon House, Sunshine Center, for all of those agencies that you all fund. Every dollar that, and who?
Rosam.
And Rosam, every dollar that we give to them is well spent. These people do incredible jobs, and we cannot get by without your all's support. That said, I would like to get Ms. Janet to give you all some numbers so you can see exactly where we've gone with this.
Hi, I'm Janet Gates. I'm director of the Franklin County Women and Family Shelter. And what we passed out to you was the proposal that talks about a little bit of the things that the 5 agencies he just mentioned are already doing, and we want to thank you for all the support that this commission and the county has provided to allow our agencies to do what we do to help those in need in our community. We have the men's shelter, you'll see Franklin County Women and Family Shelter, Rosam, Simon House, and Sunshine Center. That's just a snapshot of some of the things that we provided in relation to what this initiative has been with the emergency housing unit. In early 2018, the chaplains program with the city police, Chaplain Hartung and Captain Hopkins contacted the Franklin County Women's Shelter and said, can we have a conversation? Because we need to work better together. We don't know exactly what you're doing. We don't want to duplicate services. We don't want to be not serving someone who needs to be served. So we got together and had an initial meeting. And then we quickly realized that the city police and the county, they didn't know everything that the Franklin County Women and Family Shelter was doing, the demographics that we serve. They didn't realize that Simon House was different. They're a homeless shelter, but they provide homeless shelter for single women who are pregnant or with children. The Franklin County Women and Family Shelter provides shelter to single women who are homeless and families with children that are homeless. The Simon House, I mentioned them, they provide that for single women with children. Sunshine Center is our domestic violence agency, so they provide a certain demographic services. And then, of course, the men's shelter is our shelter for men who are homeless. So our county it is awesome that we have all these shelters available and these services. Rosam is there providing help with rent assistance and utilities to help people who are at risk of homelessness. So we came together and started meeting on a regular basis to look at the need of the people that we haven't been able to serve, because our agencies are only so big. We have pretty small budgets, and we can only serve a certain demographic. So what we've determined, as you'll see, if you look at the one page that has our 5 agencies on top, and then we started a pilot phase program back in May of 2019. We worked together with the Housing Authority of Frankfort, the Homeless and Housing Coalition, Frankfort Regional Medical. We all came together with county and all these agencies that you see on the page, and Tommy's help, meeting on a regular basis, and what can we do? So the Housing Authority of Frankfort was able to set aside one of their units, take it out of their census. They were approved by HUD to do that, to serve as an emergency housing unit to try to meet some of the needs. Because if you'll notice on the other page that says emergency shelter program data, there's the number of persons that we were not able to serve during this period, this pilot program, was 273 people. That was 273 requests for emergency shelter from residents of Franklin County from May the 31st through February the 28th of this year. That is a huge number of people that we're not able to serve. And so this pilot program was just to see, can this help us meet the needs? And it did. What we've been doing when we're at capacity at our shelter, we have 21 beds at our shelter. And our program is such that we don't have a limited number of days that someone can stay there, as long as they're working on a case plan to get to a point of self-sufficiency. So when they leave our shelter, they will not be homeless any longer. Simon House has a similar mission to their program. And then the Sunshine Center that does domestic violence, they have a whole nother criteria that they're able to serve and guidelines that their residents have to go by. So what we're proposing with this pilot program and seeing is that 2-bedroom apartment that we had since May of last year hasn't been enough. It hasn't really touched the number of calls that just our county has needed for our emergency shelter. And so what we're hoping to do is to come together and continue working together, all these agencies across the board, and move towards creating some type of emergency shelter that would be similar to the men's shelter, that would be for single women who are homeless and families with children who are homeless, so that they have a place to go as they move into, when we have availability at our shelter for the demographics we serve, Simon House, Sunshine Center, there would be a place for them so they're not remaining on the streets. They're not remaining couch surfing from one friend to the next friend, staying with families member, causing evictions sometimes happen within those families because they're doubling up and they can only allow so many in that apartment. There's a huge need out there. We're really pleased that we have come together as a community and started working on these issues instead of staying in our own little silo. It's kind of scary for us to bring this to you, just hoping and praying that we don't lose the funding and the support that we have been receiving from the city. But we do know that there's a bigger issue. There's a lot that's going on, and when you talk about hiring a social worker that's based with the city police or in the county for these kind of mental health issues and crises, we certainly welcome that and support that and hope that we can do whatever we can to partner with the city in making those things work well for those in need, because the substance abuse issues. Over 80% of the people coming to us last year, that was their issue. And that's huge. If you look at that, 87%. And that's not even touching the ones that we weren't able to serve, the 273 people. So that's what we wanted to present tonight, just what we have done. If you look at the savings that we have, what we do when we don't have space is we try to put someone in an emergency. If it's an after-hours crisis, we'll use a motel room. And that our budgets are not large enough to manage a motel room for anybody who calls in for need. But what we were able to save last year by using this 2-bedroom apartment that we weren't able to double up with. We didn't have supervision there, so we kept just, if it was a family, they were in there for however many days they needed until we could find another place for them, a better fit for them, an agency that could meet their needs. If it was a single person, we just didn't have that supervision, so all the beds weren't filled that could have been filled in there every night. But we saved $6,169. That doesn't seem like a lot when you're talking about the millions that you all work with all the time, but it is huge for our budgets because each one of our agencies, $200,000 or less is what we try to function on, and it's with the support from the community that we're able to do what we do. And we just need to present, we wanted to present all this information to you. It's a lot of numbers, I realize that, so I'd like for you to take this back and look at it as a commission and then call us back and meet with us. Let us come before you in more of a work session or whatever we need to try to think about the different options that are out there. But our phase 2 would be to open up, as I just mentioned, an emergency shelter that's similar to the men's shelter where someone could stay up to possibly 30 days while they find when we have an opening, maybe Simon House has an opening, or we're able to connect them with another shelter or another service agency in a different county that can meet their needs, instead of just saying, sorry, we're full. So I'm open for questions if you have any, and did I leave anything out that you could think of?
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are the next steps we need to do?
So the next steps, we have this 2-bedroom apartment through the Housing Authority through May. It was for a year pilot program. So the next step is either to continue with that, which we didn't find that was enough space for us. The next step would be to try to secure a space that would be large enough to have up to possibly 15 beds for women and families with children. That would need to be staffed, or at least overnight. There'd be different configurations that could happen, but it would need to be supervised. So that if you have 15 people, you have somebody there kind of making sure things are where.
I thought that I heard something. I thought that
Okay.
I didn't know what that was. Scott, I'm sorry.
Sorry for that lengthy answer.
He's on the beach with a parrot in the background. Is that a parrot? Is that a parrot? It was a dog.
It's a dog.
I know it is. I just sorry, it's okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Sauer.
Yes, Ms. Gates, do we have any numbers about we had this many people stay overnight, this many people stayed a week, this many people stayed maybe a month?
In our shelters or in this emergency housing unit?
Well, for the emergency housing that you need.
We had the average number of nights were 9
Yeah.
nights for those people that we were able to house in that, and so that's just the average from what we were able to house last year. When we started out with this, we set some guidelines where we would have someone in there from 3 to 5 days and then try to get them somewhere else. Well, that turned out to be not enough time, so we have readjusted that to allow people to be there until we can really get them placed somewhere else. So they're not having to go back out and sleep in their car or go to another shelter, even trying to work with them if they're getting them a rental property, something that they can afford.
Yeah, and there's no generous real estate person or apartment owner that would consider leasing at a nominal rate so many rooms.
We haven't gotten that far yet. That's why we were just going to present our numbers on the emergency housing unit. This is where it went. This is what it showed us. And actually the length of stay is one of the biggest issues that we have. And then because those time frames overlap so much that we need a larger space for more people. Now, we haven't started to look yet. That's just kind of the next phase of this thing. Is we have learned a huge amount over this past 8 months, and this is where it looks like that we need to go to and transition to and start to look and see. And maybe somebody will donate something to us and take the federal tax credit. I don't know. We will have to put together this group with some people that are way smarter than me to take us to the next step. That's for sure.
But we feel like this was the first step to kind of get out there and the public see this, and hopefully someone will contact a commissioner or Tommy and say, let's have a conversation and see where we can move from here to address this need. So thank you for bringing that up.
Eric.
I'll talk with you offline, but 2 publicly owned buildings come to mind immediately that we can discuss a little bit more. But just wanted to thank you all. I knew I served with the housing board, and I know how used that unit has been this year, and thank goodness we had it. And I think Tommy specifically for taking on this role, because this was a bit of an unfulfilled need, and we're identifying finally, I think for the first time, what the real need is in our community at a more macro level, so we can deal with it. And this is much more than I expected, though.
Thank you. Yeah, it's sobering numbers when we start calculating the data from the years last year.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Director Russell for taking this additional project on. So you'll bring us back some more information as soon as possible.
We will come up with an idea or a plan where we think we need to go, and then bring it back and present it. And it needs to be presented to the community as a whole. To be honest with you, I don't see any reason that the city commission should have to burden the finances of this thing totally. So, but we will flesh out a plan and bring it back and see where we can go with it. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next time. Okay, on the stakes.
Mayor, may I ask if we might move up to number 10, since the folks are here and someone needs to get on the road before too late.
Right, so
if it might be appropriate to move them up for the final presentation before we get into all the staff business.
Fine. There's no objections. Who's here?
I'll introduce them.
Okay. I'll call
that's
on.
fine.
No, go ahead, please, because I don't have any. I'll call on Commissioner Wissman to introduce some presenters.
Yeah.
Correct.
You will have some information here in the packet that Tremaine printed off for you, but I'll introduce first. Natalie Wilkerson is going to represent the Franklin County Trust for Historic Preservation, who recently worked with Walk Bike and Frankfort and many private entities to explore some alternatives to ways to save the old Broadway Bridge and rehabilitate that for the community's use. We've been looking at this for quite some time, obviously, and the commission was made an opportunity to acquire that was not as favorable as it could have been. And so we have been exploring options and believe that there may be a great opportunity here to find a way forward that doesn't see that landmark of our community demolished and can at some point in the future put it back into use without really any cost or great impact to the City Commission's budget. So Natalie, if you will come up, and I'll ask if you will introduce Julie as part of your presentation. Thank you. We've got it already. The order, except for your letter, but we have that.
Okay, perfect. And you've got everything.
Yeah.
You know, Commissioner Wissman, besides taking you and my sons on field trips, I believe I might have taken Ms. Wilkerson on 1 or 2 field trips back in the day. Makes me feel really old now.
Mayor?
Commissioner Tippett, yes. Do you need to take a break?
Since I don't have access to that hard copy, could you ask Natalie if that's what Brent Swigger posted on Walk Bike Frankfort? Is that the same presentation? Can I follow that on this post?
Can he hear me? Or no?
He can.
Yes.
You can.
I'm not sure what Mr. Swager posted on Walk Bike Frankfort, but
All that I have that you maybe haven't seen before is a letter, and I'm going to read from it. It's just from the Franklin County Trust supporting the preservation of the bridge.
Would it be okay? Could you email me that later?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Mr. Tippett, I will send it to you right now if you have your access to your email.
It is the same
It is in mine.
presentation.
It is.
Slightly different. There's a few additions.
Yeah, a few additions, but it's the same material.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Natalie Wilkerson. As Commissioner Wisman mentioned, I'm the president of the Franklin County Trust for Historic Preservation, and we're here in support of the Broadway Bridge. Once a rail bridge, then a vehicular bridge, and we hope its future is as a bicycle pedestrian bridge that would be a component to a linear park down by Riverview Park. I gave you all this letter. I'm going to just briefly, for the public's benefit, talk about the history of the bridge. The original bridge that spanned the river at this location was constructed in 1851 as part of one of the first railroads in the country. 3 more bridges were built prior to the construction of the current bridge in 1893. This railroad crossing supplied materials to build Frankfort, the city itself, prior to the Civil War, and exported local goods to markets worldwide. During the Civil War, it helped ship essential supplies to primary distribution centers in Louisville before being burnt by Morgan's raiders. Following the Civil War, the Fink Truss Bridge that was constructed helped supply Kentucky timber, floated down the river to be sawn into lumber at Frankfort sawmills, and then shipped by rail to construct much of the regions, as in the Kentucky region as a whole, reconstruction buildings. It supported local economies and continues to this day to be an iconic part of our community's past. This is a bridge that built America and is worthy of preservation and rehabilitation. Last month, the Franklin County Trust for Historic Preservation and Walk by Frankfort partnered to bring in a consultant who's nationally known for her work in historic bridges, saving them, restoring them. And she's here tonight, and I hope you all will consider her presentations. The numbers that she has put together for you, I think, are reasonable to consider, particularly in the phased approach that we're proposing. I will now introduce Julie Bowers from Working Bridges, all the way from Iowa.
Via Michigan. Mayor, commissioners, thank you so much for allowing me to come down and talk to you about your city. Sometimes it takes fresh eyes to come in and look at a location to bring the wonder back. And I was amazed at what you have here in Franklin County and in Frankfort. I spent 3 days here a couple of weeks ago. I spent more than that with the engineer's inspection report on Broadway Bridge, which is why I didn't have to bring our engineer or craftsman down in order to put numbers on your project, because that's what we do. We would come in for a very nominal amount of money to come in to put numbers on a project so that you can make good decisions without spending $100,000. That's what we try to do. So I came in, I did talk to our craftsman, Nels Rayner, and our engineer, Jim Schiffer, out of Michigan, and we talked about the repairs that are needed on this bridge. And we looked at the falling things on the bridge, and I went to Mr. Wisman and I said, I think we have to go to your Public Works Department because you have a dangerous situation down on your trail. And I hope that you really take that seriously, that you have not only concrete falling off that bridge and stalactites growing, but you have metal falling, and the trail is open. And I had Jane Woolley from the Dry Stone Conservancy out here. We both felt we needed hard hats to even walk under your bridge. So that needs to be addressed if it hasn't already. Secondly, normally when I come into these meetings, I want you to vote on something. I want to give you something to vote on. So tonight I'm offering the services of NSRGA, the North Skunk River Greenbelt Association. That was a lawyer's name. We go by Working Bridges. We are headquartered in Iowa, but we've done projects from coast to coast. We know what failure looks like because they blow up bridges when we fail. If this bridge is blown up, those piers are removed, this commission will be the one that takes out a landmark from your landscape since 1826. There's been a ford there. There were the Native American crossings, ford, ferries, a bridge, a Fink truss, an early railroad. I came down expecting this bridge to be much worse than what I found. And what I found is fairly typical: section loss, holes, decay, neglect, because people just mothball them. This bridge was condemned because it was structurally deficient and functionally obsolete 20 years ago. It wasn't wide enough or tall enough to take the traffic. So it was bypassed and people used it as a pedestrian bridge. My concerns are if you take this bridge away, people are going to try to walk the railroad bridge, and then you're going to have a world of hurt. So we came in with under a $2.5 million proposal to fix your bridge. And I'd like to get started as soon as possible. I would like the city to partner with Working Bridges and with the Franklin County Trust for Historic Preservation to start work on this project, to let us work with the state and get the $500,000 that they offered to the city for us to take on that risk so that you don't have to do it. And once it's finished, we expect it will be quite an economic development process. And that's really what I want to speak to. Everyone only speaks to the cost. $2.5 million, wow, that's a lot of money. Brent was right, you won't get a new bridge back there. There will not be another crossing put back there. It's not done today. Even if you get them to leave the piers there, what's the point? So when we first started talking, it was about a bike and pedestrian path, and I went out there and said, this is a linear park, and it all has economic development potential. The whole Broadway corridor, and as I looked more at your master plan, it really just, again, the fresh eyes, there's money to be made here. There's money to be made by a private corporation that could start developing the events that you want, right? Another one, not just downtown Frankfort, but another corporation that is meant to drive income. And we put together a study years ago on the Comer Bridge in Alabama, about the same kind of size city. The DOT director decided that it would be better, rather than a $3 million economic boon to Scottsboro, Alabama, that they would blow up that bridge. It was over a mile long. There were all kinds of opportunities. No one wants to deal with the risk. We're willing to do that for you. So that is what I would like you to vote on in your next meeting, if you would be willing to partner with us, the city, and the nonprofit to save your bridge. Any questions?
Julie, can you speak to the phases of the project?
Yep, I don't have that right in front of me, but I was asked to put to go through our deliverable at the $2.5 million and break those costs down into phases. And it said that, the first phase of the $500,000 coming from the state, in the engineering report, the bridge needed to be repaired before you could get the equipment out there to start dismantling it. So what we would like to do is take that $500,000 and really fix the truss out there, then start dealing with getting rid of the concrete and take enough of the floor beams out, put new ones in to stabilize the bridge. That could be put into a mothball phase. I wouldn't really want to stop there. As long as we're out there doing it, let's figure out how to fund the rest of it. There are all kinds of pots of money, but there's all kinds of money out that's not in the stock market anymore. So developing a Three Rivers Bridge Company here in Frankfort to take on all of the bridges, the Benson Creek Bridge, this outstanding singing bridge over here that you have, these will draw people to your city. You have a lovely city. I've never seen anything like it. The fact that you can't grow outside the bounds of it, but you still have the 12 acres that the judge was just talking about, sensational. Keep what you have. Use that to build on. So the second phase then, all in that first phase was the girders, they're bad, those floor beams have to come out of there, the concrete all has to go. Stabilize it. The truss really doesn't need that much repair to it. It's what we do. Our guys are skilled with packed rust removal, hot hot rivets and section loss repair. So these are things that we can teach to the local community. They are not lost. This is, we need these kind of craftsmen all over. It's another part of what we can bring to the table, teaching old skills to young people. I believe that some of our societal issues are because people are just damn bored. And you put that in your headline the other day. Thank you very much. You can save your own damn bridge. But that's Gretchen Whitmer talking about our roads in Michigan right now. But it's not that hard. It really isn't. If I can do it, I have a half a master's in architecture. I've been working in this for 10 years. When we can work with an executive judge in a city, we can get things done because people can work together. You have another outstanding bridge not far called the Red Bridge. You have the Benson Creek Bridge. You have the Singing Bridge. Can I have them? No. I want to move here and help you save these bridges for your city's future because I don't think that you or any of you want to be the ones that take this bridge out of your landscape. And believe me, everyone will know because I'm a talker.
Julie, one last question for you. Well, maybe two, but could you speak to, we had a lot of discovery about the pier specifically. There's been a lot of discussion in the community that the pier is destabilized or somehow causing further issues. We've found some options and...
Which pier? There are 6.
The one particularly.
Well, the stone pier I had, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I had the Dry Stone Conservancy out. I've been trying to work with Jane for 10 years because I set up our company as a contractor modeled after what they were doing and teaching people what you have here with their Dry Stone Conservancy. Unfortunately, being a contractor on bridge projects meant that Lloyd's of London insured us for $75,000 a year, which is very difficult to maintain when you're only capable of doing a couple of bridges a year. That's where these partnerships can work out. I don't have to be a contractor. I now hire the contractors, and they carry their own insurance. But that's where it gets tough. Your peer, she said 200,000. She would like to maybe 150, but it could be repaired, and that is training. That's on dry land. That's not the hard one. The other ones, we wouldn't elect to cover them up with shotcrete that the engineering report suggested because you wouldn't be able to see anything shifting. So let's go out, let's repair the cracks, let's look at what's going on underneath the water with scour on those piers and let's work with the railroads to maybe get that thing cleaned up and both of those bridges. Again, you were talking about unique. There's not another city in the world that ties a railroad bridge to a railroad road bridge. And the citizens that put this together for your city and your state put an awful lot of hard work into keeping that structure going. It's only in the last 20 years since Federal Highway put an 80-20 replacement on the table that we even let these bridges be unmaintained. So this one was closed so long ago, it doesn't have some of the same issues that others have. But it wasn't closed because it wasn't a strong bridge. It was closed because it didn't meet the needs of transportation today.
Just one more thing, Julie, if you'll speak to, well, that picture wasn't supposed to make it in there, but if you'll speak to your development of economic development plans, you've got a projected $3 million in revenue potential annually. Can you speak to where you have based some of these
I took this
on?
Scottsboro, Alabama is very similar to Frankfort, other than Frankfort is the capital. So I chose the moderate level of the report to put in the economic report on. I would love to be able to work with your tourism department, maybe even write a grant to Dr. Dixon to put in real numbers of what fixing these bridges, these 4 bridges, would do to the economic impacts of the county. But we do know that when Dr. Dixon did the report for the Comer Bridge in Scottsboro, Alabama, that they wanted a trail between Huntsville and Chattanooga. We also know that Chattanooga's Walnut Street Bridge made Chattanooga the city that it is today, with its aquarium and its legal seafoods and all those things that come about when you start addressing your rivers. You're a river town. Enjoy it. Not everybody gets to be a river town. I think it's a boon. I truly think that you could be making millions of dollars off this bridge every year in both direct and indirect costs. That's for your Airbnbs, that's for your hotels, that's for new restaurants. I did a little bit of research on the Big Four Bridge in Louisville. 2014 is when that was done, and they're seeing millions of people walk that bridge. You've got the Bourbon Trail. Let these people walk between these distilleries.
Did you want to be recognized?
Mayor?
Yes.
I don't know if I have all the information. Excuse me, you hear the noise?
No, we don't hear anything. We don't hear anything on our end.
I just have a question, if I may.
Go ahead. I do. You do.
I don't see any. I don't see any numbers about. I mean, if we take responsibility of this bridge, that means forever ad infinitum. You know, and I appreciate the rosy speculation for its income and revenue streams, but I don't see anything as far as to ongoing maintenance costs of this bridge. And if it's in here, somebody could please direct me to it, because I don't see it. And to me, that's the biggest question, is the ongoing maintenance, irrespective of the revenue, potential revenue.
Ongoing maintenance, once you have a restored bridge, is very little. Look at the maintenance that we're putting into bridges now. Very little. But once you have a restored bridge, it's not going to have paint on it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Once you have a restored...
Can you hear now?
Once you have a restored bridge, you're not going to have paint on it anymore. So there won't be maintenance on paint. That won't ever happen again.
I guess that might be a question for the city manager.
Okay, so... Oh, well, all right.
There's a lot of things going on here. Kenna.
Good.
Who owns the bridge during all of this?
I would say that in Pennsylvania, we have taken ownership of a bridge with a three-party agreement where the county takes the bridge back once we put it on in May. So
well,
that's how I would like to do this.
What I see as the issue is, well, you were here tonight. You heard of a discount on golf, and need a social worker. We need another emergency shelter program. We have a lot of needs. We didn't talk about any revenue tonight. We've got Blanton's Landing. We've authorized design for. That's a connection to our riverfront. You know, we've got a lot of needs in this city, and if we were to accept a bridge that is in need of repair, and your $2.5 million estimate is a large number. You know, we just authorized $2.5 million for the local YMCA. We just authorized $1 million for the local Humane Society. We did $1.5 million budget amendment. What concerns me is we're running out of money, and if we keep putting these into projects, the return on the investment does not seem as high there as it would at upgrading one of our parks or another facility. It's just, I don't know that we have enough resources to go around to do this project and everything else the city needs to do, and still be able to give raises to our staff or raise staffing numbers for police and fire. And there's a lot of needs in this city, and I just don't know if we have enough to go around.
Mayor, did you hear me ask for money? Because I didn't ask for any money.
Well, you've asked for a delay in the process when the Department of Transportation gave us take it or leave it. So I think the question whether it can be mothballed indefinitely is a question for the Department of Transportation.
It may very well be, but it's also a question for this city. And I understand. My father was a fire chief, just so you all know. 25 years volunteer. So I understand the needs of a city. I understand the needs of pensions. I understand that you need to find ways to bring in revenue. And I believe that we have one in that Broadway corridor. What I would like to do is take the risk away from the city and take on the ownership of this bridge, even in perpetuity. I don't care. I'll take the money for it. We'll work out something with a local company that will take on this bridge, that will maintain it, run the loading on it. We do a loading similar to what you have on Benson Bridge, which is a maximum capacity, which makes it easier for fire and safety to monitor an event on a bridge. So I guess that's what I would like you to vote on, is if you would be interested in working with the Franklin County Trust, with Working Bridges, and with other interested citizens to allow us to take on the saving of the bridge for you. Take the risk away from you. We know you don't like risk, but I have no problem raising funds, so.
Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner.
The end result of all of this, Julie, I think in my interpretation has been that a phase one approach with the money that was offered to take this project by the state would result in a safe structure, not a usable structure, but could be made into a framework, a superstructure without a decking, where there would not be falling pieces that in effect prolongs indefinitely demolition to allow us to explore other options. You came up with under $500,000 to remove the road deck, to repair the superstructure, the most critical elements, and allow us then to find a solution, which may be partnering with you, which may be a public-private partnership of some other sorts. We've discussed some interested parties, the least of which being the most obvious, R.J. Corman, and some other things. Mr. Parker knows we met with him that we're not looking for the city to fund this project exclusively. Frankly, we don't have the money to. But there are numerous opportunities for private funding, granting opportunities, federal, state grants, and other things that could make this not only a connector, in addition to the park, allow us to fulfill our master plan concept and add the value to this community that is frankly going to need some accessibility in this area for future expansion throughout Benson Valley, which is in discussion at this very moment, as well as the $150 million that's about to go in one block adjacent to this structure. So my request more for the commission tonight is I would like us to have further discussions with the Department of Transportation, that we would like them to, as I requested months and months ago, to explore removing the road deck and stabilizing the superstructure so that we can explore options. Once this thing is gone, it is gone forever. The opportunity is gone forever. And all this can be done without costing us a single dime.
And the point that it's a danger now. That's why it's an issue. And something is going to happen here in the next few months. That's why you don't have time to really think about it, because demolition plans are happening. I can approach the Kentucky cabinet about how that demolition process goes down and how they can work with our DOT qualified contractors in order to make it a safe bridge. That's what we want for everybody. We don't take this lightly. What I do take not lightly is the fact that you're going to throw away something that's been in this location, this bridge crossing in this location for almost 200 years. You don't understand what you're throwing away then. And I would urge you to contact the city manager of Conway, Arkansas, where theirs was a smaller bridge. It was only 130 feet long. We moved it from the Cadron Creek to Lake Beaver Fork for $500,000. They took it out of a grant process because that was going to be lengthy, and they used their motel tax money to do this bridge for 1 year for their parks. They're already seeing return on investment. Like they put in a 200-foot Christmas tree because they want people to come into their cities and spend money at their bars and restaurants that then indeed fund their parks. These are cities that are your size. They all have the same problems that you have. That's all we run into, is that your budgets aren't big enough, that we are crunching services, and And what I'm trying to tell you is that I think that we can bring this back so that there is more money in your city and more options for your city in the future. And that you won't be worrying about a budget 5 years in the future on something that we can deal with right now.
Commissioner, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Julie, the piers, how many piers are there, actually?
There's 2 abutments and there's 5 piers. And if I'm wrong, I don't have that right. But there's
The 2 abutments are not underwater? They're right at the
they're on your bank. So the one is on the bank. The stone pier is the one closest to the bank. So it's the second abutment on this side, on that side of the city, is on land.
So those 2 are on land. The 5 piers are underwater.
There's 2 piers that are underwater, I believe.
2 piers.
3.
3 piers.
And they are stone piers that have cracking in them that we can fix with an epoxy grout.
You say the date that they were made is 1893, is that right? Or were they there before 1893?
Those piers were put in 1852, I believe, if not earlier. 1851, 52 for the Fink Truss. So that is one of the earliest iron bridges in America, quite frankly, that Fink Truss that was there prior to this.
But that's only 3 of the 5 piers.
Right. That are underwater.
That
yes.
are underwater.
Yes.
Now, a concern that I have is I don't believe the state, when they did it with Palmer, studied anything underneath the water.
Yes.
To me, that needs to be done.
It does need to be done. I'd like to get out my GoPro and put it down there. But they should have done that underwater thing. They didn't do it because I don't believe that they didn't want to do it if you weren't going to take the bridge.
Yeah.
That would have been an unnecessary expense on top of that engineering
To me,
expense.
that's critical because as a former businessman, you really can't get a good estimate of how much the repair of that pier is when some of it is underwater.
Well, I can tell you that it doesn't appear to be moving and that the cracks aren't there and that scour is an issue, but that can be remedied with riprap, etc., if we do find scour under those. I think what we're going to find is, yeah, there's some issues. It does need some riprap, which is block or stone that stops the water from cutting underneath, but at the very base of those piers, they're probably 12 feet across and they're all stone. So you're just looking at the cracking on the outside of those. But we would want to monitor those. And again, given that the loading will never be vehicular again, you're not going to have the same kind of issues. Going back to your question about maintenance. So washing the bridge, we would put an engineered deck on it, which requires, cleaning. So if I own a bridge, I put about maybe $20,000 in security and just maintenance. You want to keep after the graffiti, right? You need cameras out there. Once you have use, you stop having those kinds of issues. You don't have somebody sleeping under your bridge, which was a tarp the last time I was there.
If we should go forward on this issue, one thing that's really important to me is that we should have the city manager as a part of every meeting that you all have.
He's an engineer, although not a structural, but certainly he has experience with those things, and
Well,
that would
that's for continuity.
Absolutely.
And so we get that opinion.
absolutely
back to the
continuity and the future.
Sure.
Because it may turn out that you go, oh, this bridge is working out pretty good for us, and then we've got Singing Bridge, we've got Red Bridge, and we've got Benson Creek. You really have, there are parks out there that are made with bridges that they bring in.
Well, we've got you. Have you looked at Benson Creek?
I have. I had hoped that we might get a contract on that to come actually inspect it and repair it.
What kind of price are you looking at there?
Well, we didn't get the contract, sir, so I can't tell you. I would also I wish the judge was still here because I would like to get a contract on your Red Bridge out by those waterfalls. Simply astounding. What I did notice on the Benson Creek Bridge just from the top is that the I-bars have been channeled. So they've gotten bent probably by flooding and deadfall that have pushed into the I-bars and caught into them. And they've come back in with a piece of channel steel just to keep them from going further. Our technique for repairing that would be to heat straighten it. So you add heat to old iron. By the way, you can hot rivet and you can weld old iron. Our county engineer, the first time on our bridge that fell into the water and is now the heart of the newest state park in Delaware, because we saved it. We pulled it out of the river and we saved it. You can weld old iron. It's not rocket science. They've done it for hundreds of years. So we want to save your bridge for you.
Mayor, if I can speak
Just want to
to
correct the record, it's not our bridge, it's the state's
Right.
bridge.
We want to
So you'll know. Just
well,
so
the
you know.
state is going to demolish the bridge. So if you don't save your bridge that is here in Frankfort, Kentucky,
The state's bridge. State's bridge.
Mayor, may I speak to the indication that we got in our meeting when I took Julie and a few of us to meet Department of Transportation is there seems to be a willingness. They did not do the underwater discovery as yet, but they said that they would be willing to continue with that because that was part of the agreement that was brought to us for the engineering study was also to include an underwater study. So that does need to be done, and the state seemingly would follow through with that and go ahead and complete it if we expressed more of an interest in the project. Beyond that, I think there is time, but not a lot of time, before a full demolition plan is developed by the state, which is already underway, to take out this completely. We have to act, whether we want to or not, now to save this if we'd like to. There is a way forward here that we've demonstrated that for funds that were already offered to us, we can remove safety issues and put off into the future development of this plan. And we've all seen it. The Big Four Bridge in Louisville stood for 50 years without any use or any activity or anything else, and now it's generating millions and millions and millions of dollars and millions of people into the local economy and is revitalizing independently Jeffersontown on the other side of the river from Louisville coming. There was just an article that
I was
that Julie
surprised
put
about that.
up recently. We need to act. We need to express interest. Obviously, everyone knows where I feel here, and I think there's a way to fund this through some other opportunities out there, just like we have so many other projects, like we are doing right now with the trail up to Kentucky State University. There are federal granting opportunities as well as private funds that for $2 million, which, by the way, includes $350,000 of a contingency, and we might even have $100,000 of donated railing to the project already. That removes that down to maybe 1.5 or so that we need to raise. But we need to be creative. We've got to stop thinking about the city only has X dollars to spend, and we need to start thinking outside of the box about how we can fund projects that we can't independently afford. We have an entire master plan that we can't afford for our downtown, but we can leverage private investment and other opportunities to be able to make the improvements that then return a greater investment to our community later on. So I would like us to, or I will move that we give some indication to the Department of Transportation that we'd like about another month, maybe to our next work session, to explore more fully some of the options that have been laid out and do our due diligence to make sure that we're not letting something go without having done our full due diligence.
You said you're making a motion?
I didn't officially move yet, but
that's what I was going to say.
I will let discussion finish before I do.
I was going to say, I'm going to go old school and just like what we used to do. If there's a project like this, I'll send a letter to the governor, and he or she, in this case it's he, will pass it down, and they'll give us an answer.
Let's do it.
And then we can get off center. Is that okay? Because I don't understand. I'm confused. If you're saying your company wants to take ownership, or you want us to take ownership?
We would take ownership on a three-way agreement where we don't continue to own it forever. That's the best opportunity for our company.
Because I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know. So I would like to get
some indication that they would, but it would be nice to have clarification.
Let's just do it and let it, so we don't have everybody talking to different people.
Right.
And just, I'm going to bring it back to the center, like, if nobody objects to that. And they can send a letter officially to us from the governor, whoever he designates, if it's transportation or if it's finance, because they own properties, follow those different procedures. And then we won't have everybody having side meetings. Not that I'm saying, not criticizing anybody, I'm just saying that way we'll get the information directly back through the top channels.
So you're going to request that, Mayor?
Unless y'all object.
No,
I'm not going to do it unless y'all say
that it should have happened.
And what are you asking the governor?
Whether or not they will give us more time on this to look at this bridge for ways to possibly save it, or if they need to feel like they just have to, based on their investigations, they need to go on and get rid of it as soon as possible.
Okay, why would you go to the governor? Wouldn't you go to the cabinet?
Because he's the governor and I'm the mayor and I'm in the capital city and it's their bridge, it's not our bridge.
No, I know, I just meant the cabinet.
Because that's not how I do it.
I see.
And I've done this 21 years and that's just how I've always, to me it's easier that I don't have to worry about side conversations with people in cabinets saying one thing and then the governor saying like, oh, I should call me, I would have stepped in and helped.
I'm not sure the governor knows about it, but that'd be great. So is there
Where are we here?
We're in Frankfort.
You all could certainly disagree with that and come up with something different. I was just saying, I just would like to.
I'm not sure. I think I'm confused. I'm not sure where the discussion is.
Right. That's what I said. I'm confused. So in order to end that, I'll just send this directly to the governor's office, and he can pass it to whomever he deems necessary. Because there's other agencies that would have to be involved in disposal of state property. Ms. Ross.
Yes, no, that's absolutely true. They're allowed.
So we've done that, and I'm saying like in 21 years of doing this, I know what the process is, and if we have different people going to different people in different agencies, we don't always get the same answer. I'm not saying anybody did or didn't, but I think enough of the confusion, let's just end it and get a direct answer, and then we can decide as a body if we want to spend money or if we want to give money to accept money from the state for $500,000 and let it sit there, which I don't think we can do.
In Pennsylvania, we purchased the bridge through auction in order to receive that $500,000. So that was the process that went down through the state, just
so they can tell
for
us.
your information.
So we'll do that.
Hypothetically, if you were to take over the bridge and something or someone was to get hurt, how is that resolved?
We carry insurance for that.
And
so in hurt, and I guess I should ask you if they should want to jump off the bridge.
That's how I did capital.
I have no patience for that.
Get off center.
So
because the governor didn't know what was going on with that back then.
I don't know what to say about that.
Finance
but
secretary was going to
most people with common sense have no desire to get too close to the edges of a bridge or to jump off. Although I've heard stories already of people jumping in the Kentucky
falling
River.
from the bridge. My other thing would be from bridges that you have worked on that are similar to this one and to the cost that you have put into them. Are the costs somewhat efficient to the numbers that we see here of the 2.5?
These costs are built on the work that we have done in construction over the last 5 years, in real construction and real construction numbers. So that's what we based them on. We based them also on the fact that we're not cheap. So.
Okay. Yeah, I see that there's a $350,000 contingency as well. So with that, is that just the structure of that? Since we had brought up, which I had down as a note, the underwater part, would that then increase that number if there is structural damage underwater?
if we can get that inspection, I don't believe that we are going to find the kind of damage that anyone is looking to find. So yes, in contingency, those are the unknowns. So it could be underwater repairs there, should be enough to cover that. It could be that we needed to, you want paint on it. Even though I would say don't paint it, you want to paint it. You know, contingencies that I put in are for you, the customer. If I'm the customer, then it's mine, but it's for those unknowns or unforeseen. Perhaps you want to take that, the light that's at the end and restore that, or put more lights on it, or put benches and planters that maneuver traffic flow to make it a linear park. Those are the things that I would put into contingency. But certainly the piers would be one of them. The inspection was very thorough. I don't think we're going to find anything else. The stone pier is the most expensive. It could be a workshop and training and working with the Dry Stone Conservancy. You have a lot of resources here in the state of Kentucky. You know, we started this when I went to Bowling Green. They have the oldest road bridge in Kentucky, they say. So you guys can fight that out. But we went in there and we told them it was $134,000 to save their bridge. The judge decided that they would save that old bridge because it's 3 bowstrings and it is the oldest road bridge in Kentucky. And they went to the cabinet and they did another $100,000 inspection. And now that bridge program isn't there. We still stand behind our fix for $134,000. This isn't rocket science. That's what I want to tell you. Bridges are difficult because they're either over water or over a ravine. In Iowa, I'm working on one on the Great River Road. Same thing. The city manager can't find funds for this bridge, but they rerouted traffic and now they need $10 million to fix the roads. So, you know, things just keep sliding around. I think that Frankfort has some opportunities here to really praise the historic bridges and the people that brought them to you in the past.
I will say thank you for your time, and I'll do more research on your company. As to my vote on the city commission and for our residents is based on your criteria of the work that you've done and the history of that. Not that you would badmouth Frankfort in any way because we would happen to get rid of a state bridge. So know that I would want to hire you because of your background and what you do as an engineer, and not that
it's the bridge hunters that badmouth you all. But I understand probably more than any the numbers behind these bridges. And I can't come to you and say, hey, you got to fork over $2.5 million without having some way to bring that money back. Even if I had to start, you know, we do naming rights on everything. I can sell a section of rail for $450. You know, there are all kinds of ways to teach people how to hot rivet, how to fix and repair bridges, and that really take the boredom out of the life of these young people and give them a hardworking job where they can go home at the end of the day and feel good. I tell you what's going to chase the drugs out of your population, it's work. I don't think I have anything else.
Thank you.
I just want to say for the record, I mean, I would love to keep all the bridges, and as long as they're safe and don't cost too much money. So we're going to look at it and see what we can come up with.
Well, we'll be the ones that can bring it in the lowest for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Commissioner. I thought you'd left. Good. Did you have anything else?
Ms. Wilkerson.
Wilkerson, did you have anything else? I was like, where did
he thought you left.
I'm sorry.
Just saying.
So what did we decide, guys?
We haven't decided. We're going to go back and see if we can see what the state's willing to do, give us more time. And then commissioners are going to do research into the company and
if we're going to consider them.
We're going to consider it.
Mayor, I don't have a nice overcoat like the Mayor Pro Tem, but to me it seems awfully cold in here. If we could adjust the heat and maybe do a 5-minute recess.
If you want to do recess, we can do that, or you can go on your own.
Do
It doesn't
a real
matter.
quick
Your
recess.
pleasure. If you make a motion,
I move that we have a 5-minute recess.
moved by Commissioner Sauer.
Not a
by
second,
Commissioner
Warren.
Wiseman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Tippett, do you want to take we're going to take a 5-minute recess, so.
Yeah, I'm having a 3-week recess, Mayor.
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. All members are present. Let's go as fast as we can. But we don't ever want to cut anybody off. I give you that caveat. Always stay as long as we need to. If everybody feels like they need to be heard, we don't want to cut anybody off. Next item is take specifications. All right, through a little bit of miscommunication error, the price that we gave in February was for a 24 by 24, and it should have been a 24 by 32. So the 24 by 32, we have to do an RFP, but we think it's going to be, well, it's going to be more than 125. So we just wanted to bring that back. What are we going to do? We're going to let staff.
It was your all's prerogative on the price.
We don't have to do a budget amendment, right?
I just want, if you all are fine going for the 24 by 24, we won't do we'll bid this out. So we'll get a set of specs with help maybe from your friend Sam or somebody. We'll get a set of specs to bid out a 24 by 32, and then we'll show you the price.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
And just so nobody's surprised, it may come in over 125. But it's your all's prerogative, your all's project. But
So we didn't want to do anything without telling anybody first.
yeah, because what the original information shown was a 24 by 24. So now it sounds like everybody knows. All right.
So, but does anybody have any questions or comments?
What is the cost
Anticipated.
difference? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
We don't know. We know it's going to be more than that, though. It was just.
Perhaps. I'd be
It
surprised.
was just a miss, that's all. All right. And actually, Tommy's the one that called it to my attention, because we would have just gone, thank you for doing that.
Thanks.
Got to have those people taking care of you. All right, next is
So,
going.
Mayor,
Sorry, go ahead.
the staff's gonna try to amend that so we can have the larger, accommodate for a larger stage. Is that where we are?
They're going to put an RFP for a 24 by 32 instead of a 24 by 24.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, and you all have the ultimate say whether you want to pay whatever amount it's over 125 or not.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's
The point being.
I thought you said, I wasn't sure.
The point being, we know it's going to be more than 125,000 because you got to put steps on it, and you got to be able to get on it.
How fast can we put out the RFP? I'm hoping we can have this in. I would
Oh, yeah.
imagine it'll take a month to build these, and we would like to have it here for
June,
the summer
whenever
festival.
That was the
season.
goal.
Yeah,
Pushing it.
because everybody on this commission wanted that.
Let's do it.
It's not just one; it's everybody. So the community can thank all the members of the commission, including all 4 of us here, and Scott. Commissioner Tippett in Florida.
Where it's 85.
Yep.
All right, moving on.
It's 85 for as long as he can forward, Commissioner.
I still think he's sitting on the beach, and if you pull that yellow wall
green
thing,
screen behind
face
him.
down, yeah, it's a
that's
green.
sand.
There's a
Palm
party
trees
going on.
behind me.
Yeah, it's a party going on right here, a celebration to last for the year. It's good times, and I left her to
Yeah.
celebrate the party.
All right.
Anyway.
Sean's next.
Yes, Ken.
All right. I'm gonna try to be relatively brief with this because I know you all got more agenda and need to get home. First thing before I get into this real quick, we contacted DLG today. Actually, Rebecca did for me, and the paperwork is at the National Park Service now, so we're waiting on them to finish the paperwork and get all the appropriate signatures and all that before they release the money. So we still haven't got the money, so we can't put a shovel in the ground or remove anything because none of that will go towards the match. So we're still waiting on that. We double checked that, Rebecca did today. So Dolly Graham, basically a synopsis here. After several public input meetings, the project's starting to balloon a little bit. People are getting really excited about it, and we're starting to, if we put everything into it this year that the public is really wanting and is really has set out to, has showed a strong interest in, we'll be going over the budget. So we're going to have to make some decisions on either prolonging this a little bit longer, but we're still going to get started, but, doing some things down the road, or whatnot. I'll get into that just a little bit.
Okay.
So just wanted to go through, hang on a minute. There we go, it's going backwards. This is just basically just going to be focusing on the first phase of this, the playground, to get this off the ground. Like I just mentioned, much of this came from the community input, the plans that you're about to see, and you've got copies of what you're seeing on the screen right there in front of you. So pretty much this all came from public meetings. So we narrowed it down to 2 options. Okay. Now the first option, we're still getting additional input coming in now from online and social media survey. Blair and Eric helped put out, through Frankly Speaking. There is a survey now currently in 2nd Street School going around to all the teachers and the students currently. I've been working with Principal Sams there, and that is circulating, and we're kind of in the middle of that. So we're getting student input from there, Neighborhood Association, King Center, and then you guys. Is kind of where our main input has come. So this is the first option, and most of this is just pictures, and you've got them there in front of you. What's really ballooned the price on this is the poured-in-place surfacing. It's all rubberized. It's probably the best thing out there for wheelchair access, but it's expensive. That's what's really ballooned and raised this budget. The poured-in-place surfacing for Dolly Graham alone is $75,000 just for the poured-in-place. Okay, the equipment that you see there is about $98,000 in equipment, playground equipment. So almost half is the poured-in-place surfacing. You can see there you got the ramps for wheelchair access. This playground here is pretty much fully ADA accessible, with the exception of the very top of the tower. But you've got to have some height to it to make it fun for the other kids. If it's all right down on the ground, the 8, 9, 10-year-old kids are going to get bored the first time they're on it and then won't come back. So there's just another angle of it. That big piece that you see there, that is a ADA specific piece of equipment. Wheelchairs can roll right into it, where the mom or parents can sit right next to them. Other kids can be sitting inside with them, or they can be on the outside of it, rocking it back and forth. You can rock it while sitting on it, or you can stand on it and rock it back and forth. But it's specifically designed for wheelchair access and other mobility devices, not just wheelchairs. You can kind of see some of these other, there's several sensory panels all throughout the bottom of this. They make noises, they light up. There's a Braille language board panel. So there's multiple different ones, and they're kind of hard to see in the picture without seeing them blown up. But there's things for blind children, hard of hearing children, kids with autism, kids in wheelchairs. It's kind of designed for a lot of the different types of children. It's just another view of it there. A little merry-go-round and the slides. They're just kind of far off and away. If you notice the orange and blue, one thing that came from the public meetings was Frankfort colors. That was kind of a unanimous. Someone made that recommendation, and everybody loved it. So that's why it's orange and blue. So, and being in South Frankfort, I think that's pretty appropriate. There's just another up above it there. So there's several climbers, sensory equipment. Very nice. But like I said, this equipment's about $98,000, which is within budget. You add the poured-in-place surfacing, that then increases your cost. That's where basically the $72,000 extra comes from. So that's the first option. And you notice the swings in the back. There'll be a better picture here in a second. But the swing there far to the left is a wheelchair accessible swing, and where kids can get in and out of that. But also kids with autism or stuff that need a little bit of restraint that are older. And then there's also a generational swing, which Mayor, you were talking about. That other orange swing that's in its bay by itself. A mother or father or grandparent can be swinging and facing them, and they swing back and forth. Most all swings you're pushing from behind, so you can't see their face and see their expression. This one you're sitting in front of them, and so you can see their face, and you're swinging with them back and forth. So that's what that is there. There's just another picture of it there.
I'm sorry, Maya.
Yeah.
So with the swings, and you had said the one on the far, it was on the far left at the time.
Yeah.
This one, which is for wheelchair.
Yeah.
That's just given that if they can transfer
Yeah.
from one or the other. So we
Yeah.
don't have the wheelchair where you roll up in the square and shut the door. And
That's not in
right.
this proposal.
Okay.
We can look at that. Those are very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of wheelchairs those swings have to be in a fenced off area and be separate because they're made of steel.
Right.
And there's
If
been a lot
someone
of there's been a lot of injuries on it because they have to be heavy duty steel to
hold the
weight and everything and to be big enough and then for it to swing. So they're pretty dangerous if they're not installed correctly.
Okay.
So. But it's not totally out of the question on this, as looking at that, so. Okay, here's the bigger option. This one obviously was picked. This one has a lot more features to it for about $30,000 more dollars. Again, this equipment is only about $125,000, which is within budget, but again, you add in the port in place, that's what's adding it up. But this one adds an extra tower to it. The difference between the two towers is the one on the left, it's open underneath, which just would be wheelchairs can roll right up underneath there, and there's more sensory panels under there that light up and braille language boards and things like that. It's kind of a kids with special needs. They a lot of times like to go find a hiding place and kind of get tucked away. That's what that is. That's kind of a tuck away nook. The other design did not have that just because there's just not enough space. And you're adding a whole other tower. This adds a couple of more slides, which was a popular thing in the public input. They wanted more slides. This adds more climbing components, which was also another highly suggested thing. They wanted more things to climb on. So this adds 2 more climbers to it. So it just adds more play space to it. There's just another picture of it. You can just see there's just more stuff. More climbers, more items, more slides.
When you say climbers, you mean a rock wall type of thing?
Well,
the little jacks there.
Yeah, the jacks, and then there's like a net climber that goes up to the top of the climber there, right? You can see it right there. Climber there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which that wasn't on the other design.
Okay.
I'm going backwards. Hang on, I'll turn this around. So a lot of the same features, just bigger and more of them, which again was they wanted more items. There's a better picture of those swings, the generational swing there where you're sitting next, than the ADA accessible chair and a tot swing. Again, it has the ramps that can get to all of that. So there's kind of the footprint of it. That's the lines that you see there. That's the maximum room that we have at Dolly Graham for the playground. So we've used every bit of space for the playground. If we expand it out, then we'd be getting into the shelter area and getting into the splash pad area. So we have maximized the space. That's the $172,000 layout option, and then that's the bigger one. It even stretches it out even more. So. I'll talk about the splash pad just a little bit. There's kind of a depiction of it there. Between $180,000 to $200,000 is the estimated cost. They gave me a $185,000 cost estimate. I just ballooned it up to $200,000 just as an estimate, just to be careful. But of course, that could fluctuate once we get into the design phase. This can be scaled back potentially to save on a little bit of funding. It can be added on into the future. We can put the footprint in and the plumbing in, but save back on some of the features. And then a year or two down the road, we can always come back in and add features. Everything would be plumbed and ready to go. We would just hold off on some of the features, which would save a little bit of money for now. So that's just an option. Just another depiction of the splash pad. But so we're talking about the playground and that ballooning up the budget of the $500,000. The other things that we got to take into consideration is the shelter. This is just an option or just an example of something that could potentially go back down there. A shelter with an enclosed section on the back with restrooms, storage area, potentially a small little community room. But that's going to up the cost considerably.
There's another example. It's a little bit smaller than what would probably go down there, but just to give you an idea what we're looking at. The cost of these are just depending on how you construct them. That one right there is made of heavy duty steel, heavy, nice wood, all about. So that's probably in the $250,000 range, give or take, from early estimates that I've gotten. So that's where we're looking at cost potential there. Other potential upgrades to the park is a hybrid basketball tennis court. You can see there it can be done to where got a basketball court and tennis. The King Center is huge on wanting to have tennis down there for their kids. So we could potentially look. I don't see this being as big of an expense. I think we can do asphalt within the city, and we can do some of the lines. It may not look as pretty as that because that's more specialized paint, but we could do something like that. But again, that's additional cost. There's just kind of a layout there. Potentially what we could do down there. Dog park as well. That was a highlight in the public input meeting. Several people spoke up about a dog park. Not a ton of expense here. This is something we could put in very minutely at first and kind of build on as we go. Add these features and stuff. So I'm not as concerned about the dog park, but we could have a.
Do you have the space for it?
I think so. It may not be that big. It'd be a smaller dog park. But
beside the basketball courts,
yeah,
grassy area.
On back behind the basketball courts on the right is where I'm thinking. There's kind of the master plan, which I think you all seen that. So just additional info real quick. Like I said, the port in place is $75,000. The play equipment's between 100 and 125 things. Important things to note that we talked about. All these design features and equipment is all subject to change. This stuff hasn't been ordered. It's not been PO'd or anything like that. So, port in place can be vandalized. That's something to take into consideration. It's rubber. If someone takes a torch to it or a heavy lighter, it can catch on fire. And it can be, if there's an area of it that's damaged, it can be cut out and re-poured almost like a piece of concrete. You run a pipe across a piece of concrete, you can re-pour it. That's the same way with the port in place. Now you have a nice new patch with the older patch, but if an area is damaged, you don't have to replace the entire thing. You can cut out a patch and replace that patch. So the additional amount of security cameras and ample lighting is in the plan for down there, but that comes with a price. LED lighting and cameras, to have enough of them, well, that's another price consideration that we need to take in. We'll definitely need community assistance with supervising the park and reporting issues immediately. One thing I'm concerned about is vandalism in the area, because we have had a lot of that since I've been here and prior to talking with staff. But with the renovation of the park and all new lighting and opening that area up, I'm hoping that the community will take ownership in it, and I believe they will, and that we'll have a lot more eyes on the area. Talked about the new shelter. Is it better to renovate the existing shelter? Still got to take in architecture and engineering fees, namely on the splash pad and the shelter. And other budget considerations that we need to take into account for commercial grade ADA accessibility throughout the park. To and from the bathrooms, the splash pad, to the rest of the area of the park. People in the public meeting really wanted a walking track around that park. Not sure if it can be done exactly, but it's possible. Parking upgrades. This could very well become a regional attraction if we do it right. But parking is obviously going to be limited. And so those upgrades are going to need to be taken into account. The basketball court that we talked about. Water fountains, benches and trash cans, fencing, signage, picnic tables, privacy landscape, bike racks, dog park amenities, all that stuff adds up as far as the budget goes. That's just something to keep in mind. And we do plan to work with the community garden, Fantasy Forest to continue with upgrades down there. So then one kind of thing, potentially, a lot of people wanted to look at potentially closing one or two of those streets that run through Dolly Graham. That's something we can look at. That would be better flow. It would make the park safer. But obviously we would need to work with the police and fire department, EMS, and the local residents to make sure that doesn't hinder access either to the resident's house or for fire and EMS to make access. So that's just being into consideration. So That's the old budget that you have there. That was the original budget when I started at $363,000 with all the different things there. With the grant and everything taken on, the updated budget that I had put together originally when we originally did the grant brought it up to the $500,000 mark. So if you notice there, the new playground was $100,000, which was spot on, but when you add in the port in place, that's what jacked up the rest of it. Is still on point. So I'll take any questions. You should.
Sean?
Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
It thrills me to hear you say that it could become a regional attraction. That's just awesome.
Yeah, I've had experience with that. We put in a very nice, very similar to this in Shelby County, and we had people coming from Oldham County, from Northern Kentucky, Litchfield, that came up just for the playground. So
I know I've broached this with my colleagues in the past and the mayor, and I think every one of these commissioners should be commended for their support of this party. It's just, we are absolutely unanimous in support of that, and I appreciate that. And Commissioner Waldridge, your support has been pretty solid from the get-go, so that's cool. But what I'd like for us to brainstorm about is, you know, I've had several charitable organizations, my Sunday school class, churches, ministerial associations, have expressed an interest in helping defray the cost or helping us round the park out where it's the most inclusive kind of premier park that we can build. And these folks are interested in supporting that. And I had an ongoing conversation with Ms. Jenkins before she left, and she seemed to think that we could set up a special account to receive donation, and citizens or groups or church organizations could contribute to that specific account, and they could designate the gift specifically for playground equipment or the park more broadly in general. Are you aware of anything that's come down the pike in that regard, or are we still trying to get that set?
Yeah, still trying to get that set, but nothing that I know of.
Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner, what I think we should probably look at, there's a real early phase in this, that's the playground. So I think the biggest decision right now is which playground do we want to build. And then I think we throw it on the architect or the engineer, and we ask them to come up, we tell them what we want to design, they come up with estimates, and then we see if we're over. Then we have some pictures and drawings to put out to the community. Then we could organize, if somebody wants to donate, maybe we name the playground, maybe we name the shelter, or maybe we do some different things like that. But right now, if we can figure out what the playground design is, we can get going. And then I say we don't ask for donations until we have the cost estimates from the engineer, so we know how much we're short and we have a goal at the end.
Yeah, our current budget.
I just sense, Mr. City Manager, I just sense a willingness out there for folks to help us in that regard. So
I agree.
We should tap those resources.
Yeah, our current budget will put the playground and the splash pad will be top notch, and we'll have left over after that's done. But if we want to put in a $200,000 shelter, we wouldn't. We can do something scaled back. We could wait to renovate. We could renovate the current bathrooms to get by, or renovate the current shelter, and then 2-3 years down the road, construct another shelter. There's different options that we can look at. One that I don't think is as quality of an option, but we can reduce the port in place footprint by doing basically a sidewalk or pass right to the ramps on the playground, and then fill the rest in with mulch. I don't really like that option because it doesn't look that great, and mulch gets everywhere, and the kids were very clear they didn't want mulch. but that's something, if we had to get down to it, then that would trim the cost of the playground down considerably. There'll still be wheelchair access to the playground itself, but then if a kid runs over to the swings, then he would have, a wheelchair wouldn't be able to get there the same way. So,
To
makes sense.
To help you out tonight, do you need the commission to make a decision on which playground?
No,
Okay.
no. I just wanted,
When will you need that decision?
as soon as DLG tells us we can move, we'll start ripping out the old playground. So I wouldn't necessarily need it that day. The playground company is hoping to put this in May, and we want to get it in. We want to get it in May before June because school lets out and the King Center's program uses the park. So we want to get this done before, basically before May 25th, Memorial Day. We want to get it done before Memorial Day.
Well, make sure to help us keep this on the agenda. If you need a decision on which playground, bring that issue separately.
Yeah.
And you can show the impacts like you did tonight.
Yeah.
If we do the higher playground, we may have less for the shelter. But, that's where we come into fundraising possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my question would be, how is this park, well, number one and number two of this comparable to Juniper Hills Park that you just installed?
This is way better.
Way better. What option one is pretty close.
Okay.
That the lesser option is pretty close to what
I just
Juniper
wanna
is,
make sure that
minus
they're comparable.
minus the port in place.
Okay.
If we had the port in place at Juniper now with this, then it would be pretty comparable to the
number
first,
one.
to the cheaper option.
Okay.
The second option will be by far the nicest playground in the city of Frankfort,
Right.
easily.
And that's great, but also parking is,
Yeah,
if it
parking.
is gonna be, we
I
really
can
have
see
to
it
think about
becoming
that
a
parking.
regional attraction.
Yeah.
And maybe not necessarily, 20 school buses coming at once, but you could have a school bus or two. You could have multiple people parking, and then it becoming an issue. I think either option. I think you're still gonna have that with that port in place, and either option, it's gonna be a really nice playground. My opinion, spend the extra $30,000, get the best thing that you can. If I was going to
So
do
that's
it.
your recommendation?
That's my recommendation. I think you will get the most bang out of your buck for the playground. It can be used 12 months out of the year, daylight to dark. Splash pad is open Memorial Day to Labor Day.
So what do you do with the splash pad area after it's not a splash pad, if it's not being used? Can that be covered or?
It would be winterized and.
It could be the maze. They could take over the, what's the thing down there?
Fantasy.
The labyrinth?
The labyrinth.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, potentially.
Ice skating. I'd like to ask you all, with his recommendation, can we put this to bed and you all say?
I think we've still got some questions. I've got some more.
Okay.
Before we make.
Well, Commissioner Sauer was next, and then Commissioners.
I was going to say I'm for option two before you said you were. I really am. And part of the reason is, a previous commission went and cut expenses on the aquatic center, excuse me. And I don't think we ought to on this one. I don't think we should at all. The only concern I have, of course, and you've already mentioned this too, is to make the equipment that we get the most vandal-proof that we can.
Yeah.
If that means costing a little bit more,
Yeah.
we cost a little bit more.
My professional opinion, and I've been involved in several playground projects, probably 25 or 30 pretty sizable playground projects in my career. This company probably has the most sturdy stuff that I've seen.
The only concern I have at all with what your presentation is regarding the rubberized mat. When you tell me that somebody could light that up, I'm really concerned.
It's not going to just instantly and just burn the whole thing down. It'll be more of a slow burn, but
if you've got a can of gasoline, you can do a lot of damage.
Yes.
What is the second best alternative to that?
Artificial turf.
Okay.
Just like you would on a baseball or football field.
Yeah.
That would be your next. That's what we put in Shelby County.
Patricia and I both like artificial turf.
No, you like lights. I like turf.
Not recycled rubber.
I like turf.
Artificial turf.
Yeah,
it will burn.
Your third best option, but it's equally going to be troublesome for fire, is crumb rubber. The actual loose rubber from just tires just shredded up.
Can you ask how much artificial turf would be?
It'd be roughly the same. It's almost identical in cost. But the problem with the turf,
The only thing with the turf is that if they pour gasoline on it, John, it's gonna burn just like rubber.
there is rubber pellets in turf
Yes.
that can catch on fire as well.
The little black things.
And another issue with turf is it'll be under a lot of trees. Then those leaves and the decaying matter gets down in the turf. So it'll be a lot more maintenance than the poured in place.
Sean, my concern more so is flooding in that area. We say it's not going to happen, but it's going to, as soon as we put this in, I almost guarantee you we're going to get a flood, right? Something that's not going to bubble, pull up in floodwaters and go on down the river when we just...
Poured in place is going to hold up the best.
Okay.
And I think we brought that up before, and I think Tommy was bringing that up too on emergency. Side.
I mean, they're depending on the severity of the flood and how bad the flood is. Could it damage the poured in place? Yes.
Yeah.
But it's going to hold up the best.
And everything that we put in this, a shelter, considering, things that are pressure washed, easily cleaned and put back in service within a day or something.
Yeah.
And, which is part of my concern with the splash pad, how we're making sure in whatever design we have that we're able to back flush that system.
Yes,
very quickly
it is all flood
in the middle of
resistant.
a flood.
It is all flood resistant. There is a controller box that will handle the chemical flow and things like that. That's removable. From what they tell me, that's the one thing that has to be moved, and it's designed to come in and out because a lot of splash pads are in flood areas. Louisville on Riverview, they take that control box out, which is like the brain to operate the splash pad. It's removable. It's almost like a boom box, and you take it out, the rest of it can get wet. Now, I mean, you got to back flush shoot the mud back out and stuff. You have to clean it all out, but it's supposed to withstand a flood.
Ms. Waldridge asked you about the comparables to Juniper Hills. What about East Frankfort? I mean, I'm just bringing up a point here. We have a lot of park upgrades to make.
Yes.
$30,000 doesn't sound like much here and there, but it may go a long way to putting in the next system in another neighborhood that desperately needs something.
Yeah.
We've got
East Frankfort, after Dolly Graham, East Frankfort and Capitol View both equally need a lot of attention.
There's been discussion for years about a playground set somewhere in the downtown here that has never come to fruition as yet. As I mentioned, that you came to South Frankfort Neighborhood Association meeting the other night. My thought is, and Scott and I have talked at length about, this is really, in my mind, phase one of what I hope is a future much larger park to be called Riverview Park or South Frankfort Park, Riverview on South Frankfort, something like that spans from Dolly Graham all the way to Singing Bridge. We've got riverfront that needs to be used, and hopefully we have some trails and some things that are able to accommodate some of the additional needs that were brought up in public meetings that people want to add spaces later on. So maybe if we don't have money for a shelter immediately, this one could be retrofitted for a little while. And if we acquire some other land on the riverbank as at a future date, there's maybe potential for something even better at a future date that will serve even more people.
Yeah. An option is, instead of building a whole new shelter with restrooms attached, we just build a restroom facility alone and not the shelter. Early estimates on that is anywhere between $75,000 and $100,000, which that would keep us within budget. And so we could potentially look at that, and then the restrooms will be built. Then we come back at a little bit later date, and then replace the shelter.
And that was
the restrooms will already be taken care of.
That was part of the consideration initially. I remember a discussion about adding new restrooms onto the edge of the existing structure, demoing out the old ones, and having brand new plumbing, everything there.
Potentially could do that as well.
cheaper
An engineer
option.
could help us out and work out those logistics.
Could be incorporated later on.
Yeah.
So let's hypothetically go and start piggybacking off what Eric was saying, with you saying also that the shelter that's already there. So with the plan that you have and everything laid out, does that shelter need to move, or are you putting the shelter exactly in the same spot, and that won't hinder us building what we need to do phase one?
Right. Yeah, I think it'll go back very close to where it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my second is the splash park. I know that we close the park at, what's the date for the swim park?
The Juniper Hills.
Yeah.
We close it?
Yeah.
Labor Day.
So
this could potentially stay open later than Labor Day.
Could this stay open later
It could.
since it's not a draining of water like a pool and everything?
It potentially could, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other, being that parking is a huge issue and that we do eventually get to this state-of-the-art park, how do we how do we handle the parking issue, and how do we think about that parking issue, and will the residents understand there's going to be a huge issue in
Yeah.
parking because this is in everybody's park, not just that community. It's for everybody
Yeah.
that wants to come.
Yeah.
And, hypothetically, do we, try to talk to, Rebecca Ruth and his area over there? And could that be a possibility of putting parking and then put like a pathway from that parking area?
Yeah.
But not put
I
stumps
think
up,
that
just
would
lines,
be
but-
the pathway. I think would be relatively doable because that's kind of
Yeah.
in the future plan anyway.
Right, exactly.
The parking on his property, I don't
To
think
see
talk
if
with him
maybe-
about it.
yeah.
But maybe.
Well, frankly, we've got 10,000 parking spaces on the street in South Frankfort. All the roadways are there that are available parking, so it's an urban park. No other community of an urban environment has direct adjacent parking to these little pocket parks. So.
I agree. And we could
Part
take
of
the
it to deal with.
2.5 from the bridge and have every single park looking great in Frankfurt.
Yeah, I mean, all this area over here right now is just
Catty.
picnic tables and old charcoal grills. I mean, theoretically, we could turn some of that into parking. Yeah, maybe the residents may not like that, but
Right.
I mean, we could look at adding some parking down there.
Yeah, because we would need some handicap parking, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sean, I have two other
Thanks.
things. I'd like us to look immediately cleaning up the riverbank, so the sight lines are there for the
Yeah, we can
water.
we can do a lot of that in.
I think we can go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
We've already got contracts with arborists, and
Yeah.
if we can get to work on that, we need to make a certified effort everywhere. But in tandem with that, I'd like to ask the staff to start looking at. We need to really come up with a plan that stabilizes our riverbanks after the slides we had this last year. Strategic plantings and maintenance of our riverbanks somehow, and maybe this is the perfect place to start. Also like to ask for an estimate for operations of the splash pad. The one the county built was nearly doubled in price its first year for the water fees that it used, and I know they've fixed that since then, but it needs to be part of our discussion what the ongoing yearly maintenance of that facility is, because they can be pretty costly. I've seen some communities that had to shut them down when money ran out in the Parks Department for the last 3 months of the summer because they couldn't keep them going.
This design is a recirculating system, which there's actually legislation out now requiring. I don't think that it's passed yet, but requiring that all splash pads be recirculating. That's the reason why the cost is so much higher. A recirculating system, it's just like a swimming pool, except you don't have the actual body of water. The actual body of water is underground in a tank, and it just sits there and recirculates and gets chlorinated.
But there's a cost benefit to that over time.
Yeah, you're not flowing, you're not going out the
There's
sewer.
an environmental
Unless
benefit.
Kenny could get his free sewer.
Finally, Sean, what does your park board recommend? What option do they want? Have they been involved in the process?
Yeah, the larger option.
I like the idea of involving the Public Works Department to help trim our costs a little bit.
Yeah.
The sewer department ought to also be involved with the splash pad, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I like those.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. So is there any objections to us allowing the Parks Director and staff to proceed with the option that was going to add the additional cost?
Or option 2 for the playground.
Option 2 for the playground.
Let's do it.
Does anyone object?
No.
Yeah, you'll be amazed what that will do alone down there. You think there's kids down there now? You wait till you put that in. You'll have.
So we're going with option number 2.
Good.
Commissioner Tippett, do you have anything to add? What?
He said yes.
If I could get the mayor to paraphrase what it was he just said.
We're going to make it University of Louisville Cardinal red. And wait a minute, apparently I made in a second I've been told.
Yeah, he's not running for
No,
re-election.
it's not. It's going to be orange and blue. You're going to go with the option 2, the more costly, larger playground option.
Yeah.
We're going with that.
Yes.
And it's going to be. It's going to
In
be.
other words, we're not going to scramble.
We're not going to. No, we're going to do it like we would if we were at Frankfort High.
Yes, sir.
Well, now hold on a second. This is just breaking news here. Apparently, someone up here from Franklin County High School thinks it's discriminatory against Franklin County. We don't have blue and
That'll
yellow.
be East Frankfort. We'll do a blue.
We're gonna blue and yellow.
East Frankfort.
There we go.
I'll just have green and white.
I didn't get green and white at Western Hills.
I love them all. My sons went to Western Hills, my wife went to Franklin County, I went to Frankfort High.
I'm Western Hills here. I'm with Eric, green and white.
Yeah. So they're all good. And we love U of L, and we love University of Kentucky.
Come on.
I'm not sure. Somebody, I'm not even gonna repeat it. I'm not gonna repeat it. That's just.
All right, let's move on.
It wasn't bad. Somebody said they love colleagues that began with a D. I'm gonna have to catch my breath for a second.
Okay, we're on. Mayor, we're back on. We're talking
Yes,
about finance director. We're going to invite Keith to speak briefly.
Number 6, discussion of finance director hiring process.
Briefly.
Well, I'll just summarize real quick. I put this on here because there was some discussion behind the scenes. We currently have a 5-person interview panel, and we have 3 interviews scheduled tomorrow at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m.
Great.
If we find a viable candidate the panel chooses, I would like to be able to make an offer this week and have a position on your agenda March 23rd. We have sent out some information. If you all want to talk about this selection process, I guess now's the time to do it.
Are you interviewing 3 people tomorrow and then more, or is it just 3 people?
Just right now, we have 3 tomorrow. If we didn't find a candidate we liked out of those 3, we would continue interviews. But we've had a very strong pool of candidates that have applied.
So you've narrowed it down to 3
Mm-hmm.
really good ones.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you want me to do?
Well, I'm bringing this up for your all's opinion. There was some concern on the process and may want to change this process.
I've done it both ways over the years. I think whatever else thinks. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Mayor, I will say, given the issues around our last finance director's departure, I think we need to take a more active role in hiring this position. This is a critical job for the city, and it goes beyond more than just talent and skill and training. At times, it's also personality and a number of additional factors that we need to have a candidate that's going to be with us long term. Frankly, we have a lot of things at the helm that are being held up right now because of the vacancy in the position. So, at a minimum, I intend to sit in on the interviews, so that I'm fully aware of what we're voting for. But I would actually prefer the commission to conduct the interviews for the finance position.
I sent an email to this commission. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Chief.
I sent an email to this commission, I think it was February 20th, explaining the process. And I think it's just bogging down the process when nobody responded to that. And then we have a suggestion that we change the entire process that I explained on February 20th. It is your all's prerogative, but I think we just delay this further and more projects don't get done.
Do we have an interim?
We do. Angie is the interim.
Okay.
I guess my question is.
Well, that makes me feel
My
good.
question
No, I'm
is.
just kidding. It does.
What?
I'm joking with you because you're right.
Mayor Ryan,
Yeah. Sorry.
I guess my question is, what is the proper procedure for a board member? Okay. And secondly, are there any board members that have the kind of experience, expertise, knowledge of finance as to be, helpful in some sort of an interview process? I think it behooves us to follow the appropriate protocol, which is to allow the staff to make the recommendations to us. And if we don't like the recommendation, then we can redirect staff. We should not, any of us, interject ourselves into the process until the appropriate time. Thank you.
Mayor, may I this really gets at me. There is continuously back and forth among this commission about we don't want to be involved. We want to let it to the staff until the point in time that something blows up, and then we want to get involved. The time for us to be involved is whenever this body wants to be, and up to individual commissioners.
Commissioner,
when
what
they
expertise
feel,
do you have?
excuse me, Commissioner Tippett, when we feel that we are.
Is it your field? Is human resources your field?
It's a delay. The delay is messed up.
If this body feels like we together want to do something, it is up to us completely. It's our prerogative at any point in time. And I never suggested initially in an email that we change any process. I asked to be notified when the interviews were and that I wanted to attend, and then I got a bit of a scolding from staff, which is another issue. But given the nature of this position and what we've went through just recently, I want to make sure, yet again, like I have in the past, that I am fully aware of the qualifications of each candidate that we're tasked with hiring. And I don't know that I get to do that.
What insight could you offer beforehand?
I didn't say that I have to provide any insight, Commissioner Tippett. I can sit and monitor and watch and be not part of the process whatsoever, as we're all allowed to be. That's not even a request of myself or my position. We are all able to do that if we want to, as long as we don't participate. We all 5 can be there tomorrow.
And I submit to you that we have the ability to review whatever recommendation that the city manager and staff gives to us at the appropriate time. And if the body doesn't like the recommendation, we can send them back and redirect.
The appropriate time is now, but prior to the hire.
Hiring process on the staff level.
I'm going to interject. Let me interject. I know that you've got like a delay, so we can't always tell, so bear with us. We have done it. We have interviewed staff before at the commission level. We have done a finance director before. So it's just a matter of what this commission feels comfortable in doing or not doing.
May I?
Go ahead.
So when you bring up that the commission has interviewed for this before,
Yes.
are you speaking of the commission now?
No.
For
I
the
said,
past position?
Commissions back when, I'm trying to think what year it was.
Steve Dawson.
Steve Dawson was.
Don't hurt yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
The most
Well,
correct
I
previous
think,
position
I just
the
think
commission
that I
had.
know that when we just brought in Jennifer, this time, I know that she was one of many positions we were trying to fill, and I know, having we needed a new city manager and things, and I think that's why we had a lot of hands-on up front, was because of our area and how many positions we had vacant. I feel that if they have 3 great candidates to go forward with his committee and bring back to us and send any other resumes that come through for us to look at, if we don't like the decision that's made. I'm not I've done HR for many years, so I do have that background, but I'm not a finance person to know exactly what we need or who we need. And I thought Jennifer did a great job, but there are many things, the reasons why she left, but we shall not speak on those. But I also think in emails, I'm not sure who scolded who or why, or if they were welcome, but I do think that you should be able to move forward and present someone to the board, and then we vote on that. Either you vote yes or no.
Mayor,
Commissioner Sarah.
I make the motion that we accept the city manager's recommendation, understanding he will recommend to the city commission. And of course, if we don't like that recommendation, we certainly can have a motion to redirect.
Second.
Okay, motion is second.
Let him have the second. He said
Yes.
it so vigorous.
Yeah, it's kind of like.
So we're in discussion now, Mayor. My question is, what is the basis to know if we don't like that recommendation? We didn't participate in the interviews. We can have a synopsis or something, but this is a position that works directly for this board through the city manager, but ultimately is, we are responsible. I prefer that we start transitioning the remaining 4-5 department heads actually to be directly interviewed by the board and filled at each time, but I'll bring that up in the future. But I am concerned about, I have looked at the resumes, and I just feel better. I mean, it shouldn't be an issue if I want to sit in on interviews and listen to what's going on. There should be no pushback whatsoever. I think anyone on this body should be able to gather the information they'd like at any point in time without any pushback from staff or otherwise.
I think that if,
I was gonna let them,
May I?
The city manager was gonna speak.
Real quick.
I think that if the interview, the resumes were given to us, so would you give him an option to see if his 3 match your 3? Or whatever, to see if maybe he's chosen the same 3. We're going back and forth, but could I give you my 3 to see if they match? I don't know. Could you do something like that? But also, I do think that it's just the way that we come through emails and the way that we speak to staff as well as city commissioners, and we speak to them and vice versa. Like when you use the word scolding, that's a pretty negative thing.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So I just think that we definitely need to learn communication and have effective communication when dealing with this, and I think things will go a little bit more smoothly.
You're one to speak.
I do. I speak very well.
All right, that's
Very
good.
transparent. You better.
All right. We have an interview panel that's made up of the Chief Financial Officer for Kentucky Retirement System, the Finance Director for the City of Lawrenceburg, our HR Director, Kathy Fields, our Deputy Director of Finance, Angie Dispinet, and myself. I think we have gone through the applications. We picked the top 3 candidates we believe, and we'll be glad to share any of the interview details or the recommendation by that committee to you all. But we have a very good panel set up to do these interviews.
I think it's been a good one, and I don't appreciate your comment, Mr. Wisman, especially when half the time your vote changes at the last minute to agree with everyone else anyway. So
Yeah, that's
what has sitting in an interview got to do with it?
loadable.
Mayor, call for question on the motion.
Anybody else? All right. Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett?
Yes.
Commissioner Wisman?
No.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yes.
Mayor May?
I'll vote yes, but I do understand, because there have been times when the commission, we have directly interviewed, because after all, they are our staff. They're city employees, city staff. So I just hope that we can make a good decision. I personally don't care if any members sit in. I mean, if that's...
I will be, unless there's some reason to forcibly remove me. I'll be sitting in the interviews tomorrow.
All right, we need to get that probably cleared up now.
Mayor, the motion was
Well,
to
then I
accept
right
the
to do
city
it.
manager's recommendation, and the recommendation did not include Commissioner Wisman. I think part of the problem, Commissioner, that I have with a city manager, a city commissioner sitting in on any of these panels is they get a lopsided point of view. I mean, it's either all in or none in. And I guess I'm voting for the none in this time. Traditionally, the city commission has always done the police chief. They have always done the city manager.
Those are by law.
They're done by, but this particular position is not done by law.
Yet.
If a member wants to sit in, is there any, just asking,
No recourse not to.
any problems with that?
A member, as Commissioner Wisman said, you all are welcome to do whatever you choose. If you're going to sit in on an interview, I don't see the issue with that. Now, what I do think is if a commissioner is going to participate as a member of the interview panel, it's probably good that you all make that decision as a group.
Right, I agree. So I just want to double check, so that was, and what I understand that Commissioner Wisman, you want to sit in on the interview panel but not ask questions, correct?
That's been my intent since my initial email.
Okay. So that...
Now, I will say this too, if 3 of you decide you want to do that, we're going to have an issue tomorrow.
Right. I won't be able to. I'm going to be...
Okay.
Sauer, would you like to attend the interviews?
No.
Will you attend with me?
To attend that, no, I just, I
That was
said
the
I
three
wanted
of us
to
there,
accept
and
the
that's the point.
city manager's point of view,
No.
so I have not attended.
Okay.
So where are
Moving on.
we? We don't have to move and make a motion or anything.
No.
Ms. Ross, that was.
Oh, I'm sorry. That
No, I just said no. She said we had to make a
I
motion.
said we
No.
don't have to make a motion or anything, right?
I didn't realize that was a question. Unless you want a commissioner or two to sit on, or more, to sit on the interview panel.
I do not. I do not mind.
I will be unavailable.
That's fine.
Okay.
So did the motion pass?
You're coming back from Florida tomorrow. You're doing the interview. I'm just kidding.
Say again, Mayor, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. I was just kidding you. I said, you're coming back from Florida tomorrow on the private jet and you're doing the interviews. We're going to let you pick who the new finance director is.
So I guess my question is, I mean, did the motion pass?
The motion passed. Yeah, the motion passed. Yes.
We did not make a motion for whether or not a city commissioner could sit on it. That was what we were
So
discussing.
to further clarify, ask the city attorney if there's any issue if a city commissioner or mayor, member of the board of commissioners, were to sit in, they didn't participate and ask questions, he said there's not a problem with that.
Mayor, I'd just like to
I've not understood that. I said that, okay. I don't want to put.
He has a statement.
I'm sorry.
You know, it is upon the members, the elected members of this body, to gather information in any way they seem reasonable and fit. My intent the other day with an email, last week in fact, was always to sit in on these interviews so that I could have a basis to say yes or no, that I think this is the best qualified candidate, and or I don't think we got the right one, that the staff needs to look back at the selections. I've done that already in the past with some of our hires, and I will continue to do it in the future. These are critical hires that operate our city and generally will stay with us for a very long time. It is upon any of us to gather information, like I said, in the form that we best deem fit, and for our staff to make accommodations for us to do so, I believe. So we're not crossing any lines here.
Commissioner
D-
Of course.
I want to do this correctly. Does each member of the commission understand that the board, through its vote, a majority vote, hires the finance director? Not, if we do not see or place a filter, okay, in the hiring process, okay, that could be construed to be forcing the actions of influencing actions of the hiring committee. It's just not good practice. Okay, now whether you participate or not, any commissioner, I won't call anybody by name, but if any commissioner does that, that's influencing the hiring process. And you're taking upon yourself the responsibilities of the full board. One commissioner does not have that authority. It takes three.
And just to be clear, I don't know if you could hear or not, the commissioner that wants to participate will sit in on the meeting but will not participate. It'll just be as an observer.
And Mayor, if I may clarify too, just to, in what I said, you all, of course, Commissioner Tippett made me think of this, you all, of course, always have the right to develop any policy or rule or vote that you want concerning a hiring process, whether that is we don't want any commissioners sitting in on an interview or participating in an interview, or we want to do every single interview ourselves. It can run the gamut. So just to be clear, a commissioner does have the right to go in and listen to an interview unless you all said, no, we don't want that. So that's the difference. You all always have the right to make that decision.
And I'm not comfortable trying to dictate what other commissioners or members of a legislative body do. The others may want to. All right, next item. Approval of transit grants application for a new transit facility. This would be in the 5339B, 5339, and 5311.
Yeah, I'll speak to it. All right. We are working on some grant applications for a new transit facility. Our old transit facility, we got some grant money to make repairs to last year, and we found out it wasn't structurally sound enough to get those monies. I don't know if y'all remember, about a year ago, we were also talking about a new transit facility on Parcel B when we were involved with an MOA with the state government for Parcel B. The state did not like adding that layer to that MOA. It was confusing enough, so we backed off of it. Well, now they have surplused Parcel B and C, and we see another opportunity for a transit facility in our core downtown area. We have a need for a transit facility. We have a need to put these buses and vans under a shelter. We have a need for a place for people to get out of the weather, to wait on a bus and do a transfer downtown, and to buy bus passes. We have a need for staff and dispatch to be located there. So what I am proposing to do, we're working on applications for a 5339B discretionary grant. This grant would be in the basement of the parking garage. There'd be parking spots associated with it. There would be a match component of $1 million, maybe a little more. We would be asking for $4 million, maybe a little more in federal monies with our match. This, if we were to get this grant, would offset the $6 million the developer asked for in the TIF reimbursement for the parking garage. So this is probably a net gain of $2 million less we'd have to contribute through the long-term TIF if we were to get this transit grant. And we're also, the 5339 regular and the 5311 grant, we're going to ask for the same thing and combine all applications towards this project. So I just wanted you all to be aware, because we're committing a match component from the city.
I think that's excellent.
Does anyone have any questions about that?
You know, a couple of thoughts, Mayor. You know, Mr. Parker came up with this initially to plug in that transit facility into the Parcel B development. I'd like to see this more fully fleshed out. We can apply for a grant, but I still don't believe that the highest and best use of Parcel B is for bus parking. We need to maximize the residential, commercial building space there as much as possible. And if our buses need to drive a mile outside of the core to have a transfer facility, I think that's better. But I don't have a problem applying for a grant, but I expect this body to make the determination on where it will go eventually, although I do like the idea that it could offset contribution required for the parking structure. So maybe it could be a good use.
Man.
Okay, Commissioner.
I think that it would be good use. I think it was a great idea, and I don't think it started with Keith Parker. I think it started with Secretary Chow. So I think coming down from the net, actually it came up when we were talking with Mitch McConnell, Andy Barr, Rand Paul, and Secretary Chow, and they had brought it up at the time, and then it was then brought back to Frankfort and discussed with Keith and everyone else, and I think that's where it started from. So, which I think is great to have money to help build that area.
The footprint of the area wouldn't compete with any residential, retail, commercial, as it would be in the lower floor of the parking garage. Correct. So it'd be a vertical underneath the required parking that's required as Parcel B. So it would not be a detriment or a competition with the other retail, commercial, or residential space.
The question is to apply for the grant. Do we need a motion? I think because of the urgency, Mayor, you know, we don't have much time.
We typically don't do that at our work sessions, but we can. The law doesn't.
I'd rather not. We dedicated work sessions only to be for very time sensitive or emergency issues, and we're getting into a trend of approving anything anytime it comes up.
This is
We
different. We have an emergency in the case that we are going up there to DC at the end of this month,
Yes.
and we need to get moving on it.
Before the meeting.
You said you don't mind applying for the grant.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Waldridge.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sauer. Discussion.
I think it's an urgent situation to apply for the grant because of our trip to DC.
Okay, no other questions?
When is the deadline for the grant application?
I'm sorry, guys. You're modeling breaking up. So the motion was to make the first reading, second reading?
This is approval. This is approval on number 7. We can approve it tonight if you want.
Approving the grant.
To apply for the grant.
To apply for the grant.
This
For
is an
transit.
application.
Do we have a deadline for application?
The 5339B is the end of March. The 5339 and 5311, I think, are March 16th.
Any other discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Waldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett?
I'm going to abstain because I'm not sure I understand the motion.
Okay. The motion is to approve the city's application for transit grants related to the new transit facility on Parcel B and a parking garage. And these are grants that have to be submitted by, one of them has to be by March the 16th, the other one at the end of the month, end of March. And members of the commission are going on the DC fly-in on March the 23rd. So there will, we won't be able to do it.
So
It needs to be done before that.
We're essentially expediting the timeline, is that correct?
Correct. To meet a deadline with the federal government of March 16th on one grant and the end of March 31st.
Okay, I'll vote yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Wisman?
I will say yes, only because the deadline is March 16th for the first grant.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes. All right, that motion's adopted. Next will be first reading. Let's go. Can we do first reading? We'll do first reading tonight.
Can we?
No, I said you want to.
It's
I'll
up
let
to
you. I'm just gonna let you do it.
There was a reason why we decided to do the first reading, Tommy, and I think that was because we had a few applications that were being held up.
Okay, go ahead. First reading on number 8, please.
Okay.
By title and summary only.
Mayor, I have some issues with the, shall we do that before or after the reading?
What is your issue?
The fees, I just feel are too high. That we are
Then we should do that before the reading.
trying to encourage activity in the city, and one of the events that I have organized before would incur about 3 times the cost it has traditionally here under this umbrella. I compliment Tommy and everyone for trying to streamline the process more so, because it was cumbersome and a bit ridiculous, but I would like to encourage more activity and in some way try to find some set of funds that we can set aside to help defray cost for community activities like block parties and some of the things we should really be encouraging to build community across the city.
Commissioner, I just want to point something out, just for your benefit. If, like others, if you're part of a group that's applying for the events.
Claiming, yes, I understand what I said.
You might want to recuse yourself from this, correct?
Or just refrain from that position
Okay.
for now.
For any entity in the city that would like to host an event, I feel these fees are a bit high and an obstacle to allowing some good, well-intentioned community festivals from occurring.
You want me to answer that?
I said I had in the past.
You want me to?
Laura. I didn't say that was currently.
Tell you how we arrived at that?
Whoever wants to take it, I don't care.
I would love to see how you
But
arrive.
yeah, please.
So you remember back several years ago, before we even had this event permit process, the fees were like $25, and we entertained something like 85
runs.
Permits. People wanted to do things. They could rent them all out for a birthday party for $25. So a couple of years ago, Cindy, Ms. Steinhauser was here, brought it in from Iowa. We kind of looked over that and adopted that policy to try to give us direction on a better road, a better path. Those things, I administered this thing all of last year. City manager asked me to, and I said, that's fine with me, I'll do it. It was confusing at best, I will say that, sir. The reason we got to the fee is we $25 is too little, $50 is too little. We had 50, 100, and 150 last year was what the fees were. We just took the higher fee because when a permit comes in, it goes to Rebecca, to Blair, or Blair, Rebecca, to me, to the police chief, fire chief. So just trying to recover some of our costs, our time costs for that. To us, to me, Rebecca, I'm sure will say the same thing, and to Blair, let's set the fee whatever we decide here. I don't care.
There was one alternate reason for the fee is if you came in and wanted to claim every Friday night for the whole summer with one fee, you really don't have a lot of skin in the game. You can tie up you can close that road for everything.
Yeah. And we decided to go with only allowing to submit for 3 dates at a time, and then we would collect that fee there. So, you know, and I agree with the city manager that way if you want it Friday night and I'm mad at you, then I'm gonna jump the rest of the Friday nights and pay my money. So that's kind of how we arrived at that.
I still believe we need some, I don't know how we do it, but some review process of prioritization of those events for scale or yeah, I know we're getting into a whole lot of.
It's first come, first served now, so.
Yeah.
But we still retain the ability to deny an event.
We do.
And we have some, if they're going to block traffic for a small event in a certain area, or if it's going to impact a previously known event like the Grand Theater, you know, we got a first reading.
We can change it for the first reading.
I mean, you want it $125? We just need something significant enough that people won't apply for nights and without any skin in the game.
$125.
I would be more amenable to the higher fee if we had some pot of money to help assist the startup things, the community events and I mean, well, it doesn't seem to be a great amount, but $250 damage deposit, $150 fee, $200 or $300 insurance policy. Before you know it, it's $1,000 or more to host a little Friday night block party on your street. You know, it's with barricades, and I'm just being cognizant of the cost of hosting something for community good that may have little to no return on financial investment.
Well, there has to be some way that we can curtail some of the small, small events. So
I agree. The streets being closed every Friday and Saturday a couple of years ago was unacceptable.
Right, and I took a lot of flack from the businesses downtown for the real small events, and that's why we started this process, was to try to alleviate some of that, since we have hence also created a new downtown 5K route, which will open up the business end of Broadway and does better things that way.
I understand Commissioner Wisman's concern about the $50 barricade, and we did take that into consideration. So if you look down in the fees, there's $150 for the special events, but then there's also a $50 to barricade streets if you were going to just need barricades and do a block party. So we did take that into consideration.
So it's not a full 150 for.
And that's a separate event. That would be just to create a safer barrier for your event, like the Foundry. If they want to close that alley coming down through there, where our barricades cost more than $50 if somebody tears them up, but still it's $50 for our guys to come set them and pick them up the next day. So.
And to analyze the situation and make sure it's not a safety hazard.
That is correct, and that's why it goes to me first or second, and I look at that thing saying, yes, we can do it, or no, we can't do it, and it's an option for us. And the city manager still has the right to refuse or approve any event as we go down through there.
So it would be $150 if I did an event but didn't need barricades. But if I needed barricades, I would have $50.
If we're not doing anything but blocking off one alley or one street or something like that, and nothing else, no police support, nothing else, it's $50 if you're just creating a safer zone around your event.
Gotcha.
Like SIG, the alley going down SIG, or the Foundry, like I said, just to keep your people safer.
Okay, gotcha.
That was kind of the thinking in that.
So Tommy, is there an additional charge for police?
There is, sir. If the police go, generally if we staff streets, block streets, the police overtime rate is charged in full. For nonprofits, it's half. For profit agencies, they pay the full amount. and whatever that fee is times the number of hours they were on the scene. Nonprofits get half price, and generally that number was about $35 an hour. So, and for people for-profit events, obviously they're making money, and the nonprofits, we cut them in for half. So.
Those races are killing it.
You hope. Well,
All right.
I'd rather have like a $9,900 fee, honestly. That just makes me feel a little bit better about the, and their damage deposits went up from last year too. It was $200 last year, if I remember correctly, I think.
Can you
get that back?
Can you explain?
I
Do we
get
even
it, but-
cash the damage deposit
No,
on check?
that's returned.
No, it's usually held.
And I did not cash anybody's damage deposit last year. I checked every event after it was through. Generally, that's something that probably won't happen, so, and even if they have multiple events, we were gonna hold a damage deposit for each event as long as it cleared, and came back as clean. So, you know, we're good there. They're not writing $750 for 3 events, so, you know, make it $100 and let's move on. It does, you know, I'm just trying to recoup some time for city staff.
Well, that's
There
what
was,
you're saying. The time is huge.
You know, there was a discussion when Cindy was here, and we had all of the community groups and over at the public safety building discussing just this, that there's a real differentiation that we need to somehow figure out how to do, and I don't know the answer still yet, between the small community events and then the big capital parades and marches and things that we don't want to discourage one at the loss of the other, or and how we differentiate between the two, because obviously the large marches cost a great amount of capital and initiative to the city just for staff time and organizing those in your time, Tommy, whereas something like the Lewis or the Catfish Alley art exhibit that they closed down, all it needed was a $50 barricade in this instance, is a totally different thing. But how do we
I can't
maneuver
answer that.
between the two, right, is the concern.
You know, we looked at crowd size, I looked at a whole lot of things, but when you put down crowd size, I'm planning on, Rebecca's gonna guesstimate the crowd size. Well, if the break over is $500, she's gonna tell me 500 people, she's gonna tell me 475 people every time just to save that money. So really, there's no good way to do it. That's why we went to one set fee for all of the events.
That'd be better, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go with $100 then. Move on.
Well, we gotta read it with 100. If y'all want that. I agree. I'm fine with that change.
Nope.
All right, so we're gonna. I have a question. We need to. It hasn't been read, so do we need to make a motion to amend that?
Yes.
I believe to
Yes.
be for protocol.
For first reading, yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to amend the $150 for all special events permits from $150 to $100?
Yes.
Somebody make that motion. I don't want to make.
So
a motion.
moved.
Okay, Commissioner Sauer.
Second.
And second by Commissioner Waldridge. So now the ordinance is going to be read for its first time with, sorry. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. All right, it's amended. Now, I'd like to ask it to be read by title and summary only as amended.
Gotcha. Okay. An ordinance repealing and replacing the City of Frankfort Code of Ordinances, Section 71.50, 71.51, 71.52, 71.53, 71.56, 71.57, 71.58, 71.59, 71.60, 71.61, and 71.62 related to parades and special events. This ordinance amends these sections of the Frankfort Code of Ordinance by amending sections 71.50 to 71.62 to replace special event parade and special event parade permit with special event and special event permit throughout. Section 71.50 is amended to add sub-definitions of special events. Section 71.52 is amended to change the filing deadline from 45 days to 30 to add a $500 late filing fee excluding first-time events to allow applications to be filed beginning January 1st for the calendar year. to remove the Special Events Committee and replace it with Community Partners and Regulatory Entities, and to change permit fees to $100 for all special event permits and $50 for barricaded side street closures. Section 71.53 is amended to designate one Capitol Avenue parade route and one downtown race route with 3K and 5K options. Section 71.56 is amended to designate the Office of Emergency Management as the contact for security plans and to add ranks of police officers who may provide event security. Section 71.57 and 58 are amended to allow social media as an acceptable means of public notification of the event. And Section 71.59 is amended to require refundable damage deposit of $250 for all special events and to clarify that one deposit may be retained for multiple events. Section 71.61 is amended to require the city manager or designee to respond to a permit within 30 days.
All right, so that's first reading. And if the city manager doesn't respond within 30 days, you know what happens. We just wait longer. Sorry. Next item is Second Street Tiger Grant Project Consent and Release Agreement. Chuck Knowles has gone and had a pizza in Lexington and has come back and said, yes, Frankfort pizza is still the best.
Short and sweet,
Good.
Chuck.
I was actually about to
A
take.
bit good news, we have reached an agreement with the property owner and business president of the properties at 415, 417, and 419 West 2nd Street. The terms of this agreement are defined in a 2-page consent release, which have already been signed by the property owner and the business president. We're requesting the commission to authorize the mayor to sign this consent agreement on behalf of the city.
Question, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Of course, I have to ask Chuck, do we have a legal determiner that this property was not ours? There was speculation about the width of the street, that this was always the city's right-of-way.
Right. As part of final design and right-of-way processes for this project, which started last October, some of the scope of work for Strand Associates was to conduct additional surveying and title and deed research.
Right.
And based on all that, they plotted the property, and we talked to the Transportation Cabinet, shared with them the results of this, and the Transportation Cabinet decided that they were going to claim back of the sidewalk as state right-of-way. So that's where, and from there we moved on with the project and the design of the project.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chuck.
So,
He's like, that's easy, hold on.
After wasting on the time, they walked away.
He's like, I'm walking away
we're
slowly.
supposed to vote on this tonight, or is it going to be on the agenda for?
We need it.
We need it immediately, right?
Yes.
So, is there a motion in a second?
Move to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Sauer, second by Commissioner Waldridge. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Waldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiseman,
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer,
Yes, and thank you for your work.
Mayor May.
Yes. I'll get that signed.
Okay. You did it.
Does that look good? Does that look good? Sorry.
Thank you.
No, we got a long way to go because they're going to discuss the tentative agenda. I know Commissioner Tippett wanted to state, he's gone. Commissioner, you can't do that. I was getting ready to make fun of you. Not really.
He's back.
You went to get something to eat.
I'm sorry, were you wasting away again in Margaritaville? Were you searching for?
Power, Mayor.
Oh, I thought you were looking for your lost shaker of salt. Shaker of salt. I can't
That's
say
happened to
it.
me before.
All right. Anyway,
I'm sorry, Mayor.
it's okay.
I'm down to 10% power on my Skype device here.
A Skype device. Skype my bill.
Do you have any, items on the tentative agenda you'd like to review, Commissioner?
No, I'll save it for later.
Okay.
Oh, nice light.
Anyone else?
I'm looking again, Mayor. I think I'm fine.
I'm sorry.
He said he's looking again, Mayor.
Oh.
Oh, the tentative agenda.
Yeah. All right. Any unfinished business? I remember we have a closed session.
One item, Mayor, just a point of clarification. There was a bit of an accusation at last meeting that I wanted to clarify. The city does have a representative who's an ex officio member of the Franklin County Humane Society, Mrs. Linda Thomas. We were asked at the last meeting, and it's been said that none of us knew or that we didn't have anyone, so I just want to clarify in this meeting that we do, in fact, have a member at large who's an ex officio as.
I think we did say that, but
we did it. We did at the last meeting, yeah. But I just.
She was at the last meeting and came up and introduced herself.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's been questioned since then, so I wanted to bring it up.
All right. Any other unfinished business?
This is kind of in process, I think, Mayor.
We'll kind of either way.
I just want to commend the staff, especially Laura Ross and the Parks Department, regarding working on the RFQ for Fort Hill. I encourage them, hopefully, to have that on the agenda on the 23rd, as well as the Parks Master Plan that I know they're working hard on.
Commissioner, if I may, first of all, I don't want to take credit for the Fort Hill RFQ, but we are gonna get together on that this week and get that moving. And then the Parks Master Plan is actually at the top of my list. So
look in there.
I know.
Thank you.
All right. Any new business?
I have one.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
If you all can go first, if you like.
No,
Oh,
you're one.
thank you. I just want to speak to the city manager and particularly department heads. I am unhappy with not getting all of the backup information for each one of our agenda items in a timely manner, particularly when we're talking about looking at and approving, more or less, a voting meeting that happens in 2 weeks. The deadline, as I understand it, for your submission to the city clerk, the city manager, and to Laura Ross is Tuesday by noon. I'd like us to pay more attention to that deadline, because publication comes out at Friday noon, and those 3 members of the staff need the information in advance so we can make good decisions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not for you.
Mayor, may I make a request, sort of, and I was not going to state this, but now that you have, Commissioner Sauer, I've said before, but I'm concerned about agenda items that are put onto our agenda asking for a decision. We never receive anything except for a staff update. I would like to at least request from now on anything that our staff is bringing to us to have a one-page document attached to our agenda explaining exactly what we're going to be presented. Some background information. I'd like to be able to do my research. Everyone knows I'm maybe too thorough, but we seem to have something most times come forward that we don't have any information about, and we're expected to make a decision or direct a decision at that point in time. So I'll just reiterate Commissioner Sauer's comments there in that form.
Yeah, I gotta do that to be fair.
Since he was 9 years old.
You want to throw this away?
You like that?
That's yours.
I don't know.
All right.
Thought it was yours.
I was gonna say too.
I need clarification.
Clarification. Okay.
The Tuesday by noon deadline, we've got, well, that deadline applies to both the work session and the voting meeting. the main agenda, we do our best to get all
hard.
attachments to it. And if we have to start holding stuff back, waiting on attachments, but I will agree that we probably need to do a better job getting these attachments in order quicker. It seems like over the past few months, we've been assigned, after every commission meeting, a multitude of tasks that now take priority over what we were working on. And I will, at our next staff meeting, it all falls back on me. I will get staff to help me get these attachments in a more timely manner, but we will have times when we have to submit some late. The transit grant today, I assume Commissioner Wisman may have been talking about that, a one-pager. Again, with our work schedule, we were given news that the 5339B discretionary grant is normally due in the summer. We were told last minute that it was due to the state at the end of February, and then they submit to the feds end of March. So we found out about that with about 2 weeks to get it together. So we started working on it and threw it on this agenda to tell you about it. We'll do a better job of doing a one-pager, and we do work hard at trying to have all this information together and keeping the commission or keeping the city running in a timely manner and not holding stuff back because there may be a couple items missing, but we'll work on it and do a better job.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, let me say too, I've been here for 29 years. There's just going to be times when things are going to happen that staff can't really control, when they might find something with a deadline that it just pops up and they might say, you know what, this might be an opportunity, let's grab it and put it on the agenda, and hopefully the commission will understand. So they do, I mean, they're not intentionally holding stuff back. I don't believe that.
Mayor?
Commissioner?
Sorry. Yeah. Did I just get an upgrade? I would like to say this. I feel like I need to, because sometimes it isn't the fault of the department head who brings it forward. They may have brought it to me and I haven't gotten to it. So I just want to take responsibility for my role in not getting those attachments that they have brought in a timely manner reviewed in time. Sometimes it gets very difficult, but so I'll work on that.
Especially with all the ordinances you have to rewrite and all of that.
There's a lot going on.
I went in one day and her whole desk was covered with things. So.
Okay.
Okay, well, I just want to say, people are getting stuff to our city solicitor, and she's holding it back.
That's right.
And then I'm going and I'm asking questions, and it's holding it back another day.
Yeah.
And I didn't check my email on it, so I apologize.
We appreciate all staff.
But all are responsible. If you're responsible for that, let's stand up.
It's everyone.
It's
right?
everybody.
But it's very difficult, particularly for the work session, when we get things that we need Friday afternoon, and we don't get to ask a question until Monday morning when staff is back in, and there's almost no time to research, and it's almost impossible to be ready and prepared. I would encourage you, even if it's partial, to give us direction, send it out ahead of time, say we're going to likely bring this forward. Ask questions if you have them coming up ahead of time somehow.
No, Eric, you were born ready.
Mayor, I'm ready to adjourn unless...
I want to say one thing real quick. We got mentioned that we've got another designation as a micropolitan area again, and I just want to kind of point to everybody. And this is in defense of our staff. I don't like to go on the defensive, but I always say this. When people have problems, if they have issues with saying things that our system is hard for new business or industry to go through, or people want to get applications, I would love to hear that. Because when I have investigated these allegations by people before, I've gone back and found out it's not our staff that's the holdup. When people say, it's a horrible place to do business, it's not business friendly. When in fact, it's not our staff that are the ones that are holding people up. It's something else in a process that is not ours. And I'm not trying to place the blame on any boss, but I just want to say in defense of our staff, they do a wonderful job of trying to help people walk through the process of starting a new business or any other kind of application for any type of permits, whether in everything. And so when I see these designations, it makes me go back and wonder why people would say that unless they have tried to sort of skirt the system by getting something approved through the planning commission or planning staff and then going back and making changes. And same with anything in public works. If things are approved and then people make changes, it means it has to go back and be re-inspected or the process starts. So I will say, as for the last several years, over 20-something years, we started getting designations, recognitions from national groups, national magazines, rating guides, everything. So if our staff and folks are not doing things to keep up with that, I would have to say, why do we keep getting recognized? So I think hats off to our folks, and I know you take a lot of criticism, and I, for one, don't like it when people do that. And if you have criticism, call me and tell me, or call a member of the commission. We'll investigate it and we'll look at it, and if it's something that needs to be changed, we'll look at changing our laws to make them easier. But I think we've got things in place that are favorable for folks to do business here. And if people don't want to talk to me about it, that's okay, I get it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we ready to go into executive session, Mayor?
Mayor, I move we go into executive session per KRS 61.810, subsection 1, subsection B, for discussion of the future acquisition of real property when publicity would likely affect the value of the property.
Moved by Commissioner Wissman. Second by Commissioner Waldridge. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign.
Oh, man.
Well, we're in executive.